If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 96, The Game. Although she wasn't a top-tier player, she was still a professional 6 Dan, and setting up game records was something she had done countless times while studying Go. Yet just watching Rei place the stones one by one made Rika's forehead begin to bead with sweat. Because the level displayed on the board was, quite frankly, terrifying. "Slow down, let me think," Rika said suddenly. "Who is playing black? Why don't I recognize this style at all?" A faint chill ran across her scalp. The player controlling white was already far beyond her reach in skill, at least 10 levels above her. But after more than 60 moves, white was being steadily suppressed by black. That calm, seasoned, nearly flawless way of playing created a suffocating pressure that pressed down on her chest. It was even more oppressive than watching championship matches between top players. "They're amateurs," Rei said lightly after coughing once. "It's normal that you don't recognize them. And they don't want to be recognized either." His hands never stopped moving. Stone after stone fell into place. When he reached the 77th move, Rei finally paused. "I hope you can help me find 2 top players to continue this game from here and complete it," Rei said quietly. Rika leaned in and examined the board carefully. "Does this even need to be continued?" she said slowly. "White is clearly losing. Forget 2 top players, if I played black now, and the world's #1 ranked player took white, I could still..." She stopped mid-sentence. Her expression changed. She suddenly remembered what Rei had said earlier. He had claimed he had once seen the hand of God appear in a real game. Rika's pupils contracted. "No," she said softly. "That's impossible." She looked up at Rei. "The game you saw back then, white won, didn't they?" Rei's calm silence answered her question. Rika sucked in a sharp breath. "This doesn't make sense. With black playing at this level, how could they possibly lose from this position? Who are these 2 people, really? And how did white turn this around?" She could feel the terrifying depth of both players in this game, but because she herself wasn't at the very peak, there were still many layers she couldn't see through. Rei broke the silence. "Let's stop here, Teacher Rika. I know it's troublesome, but please help me find 2 players of at least 9 Dan strength, preferably with championship titles. As for compensation," Rei added calmly, "I'll make sure it's sufficient." Rika took a deep breath and nodded. "Don't underestimate me just because I'm only 6 Dan, she said. "My network is wide. There's a current championship title holder in Japan who used to be my junior. With Hikaru no Go's current influence and its contribution to the Go world, asking them to help complete this game won't be a problem." She paused, then looked at Rei seriously. "But when the time comes, you must be present. After they finish the game, you'll have to show us exactly how white reversed the situation." Rei smiled faintly. "No problem. I can recreate the game. Just don't ask me why those specific moves were chosen," he added honestly. "You know my actual level." With Rika agreeing to handle the most troublesome issue, Rei finally felt a massive weight lift from his chest. Soon, Wednesday arrived again. Chapter 41 of Hikaru no Go was released. In this chapter, Izumi lost once more. But Hikaru, and several other players who also had 2 losses, lost as well. When multiple rivals fell together, it was as if no one truly lost. Hikaru still held the initiative to qualify. Izumi, however, remained dependent on others' results. Especially the competitive relationship among Izumi, Hikaru, and Oki was now fully exposed. From the win-loss conditions presented in the chapter, most readers could already tell, there were only 2 promotion slots left for the 3 of them. And given the intricate win-loss triangle between them, it was impossible for all 3 to be promoted. And in the plot, Hikaru's final opponent in the professional Go qualifying tournament finally emerged. In this chapter, although Hikaru had already suffered several losses, none of the opponents he lost to were weak players. Moreover, because Oki was determined to qualify, he had been meticulously studying the game records of every potential rival. It was at this point that Oki finally learned about Hikaru. Especially after reviewing Hikaru's match against Ko Young-ha, the Korea's genius player, Oki's confidence plummeted. That game made him clearly realize one thing: Hikaru was not an ordinary examinee. By the end of the chapter, Akira, who had been absent from the story for quite some time, finally reappeared. After witnessing Hikaru's games, Oka could no longer maintain his earlier composure. The sense of crisis he had been suppressing surged forth all at once. And so, for the first time, he formally accepted Akira's earlier proposal to undergo special training under Akira before facing Hikaru. Oka wanted to defeat Hikaru in the final match and secure promotion with an undefeated record. On the official website, the weekly large-scale discussion among fans immediately erupted. By now, a massive number of TV drama viewers had already caught up with the manga through collected volumes. They flooded into Hojimori Group's official forums, eagerly reading manga readers' analyses of the tournament structure and win-loss relationships. Alright, now the direction is clear. Has everyone actually mapped out the promotion win-loss relationships? At this point, whether Izumi and Hikaru qualify basically depends on Hikaru vs Oki. The remaining opponents are relatively weak. Even if Izumi is in bad form, he's unlikely to lose again. So everything hinges on whether Hikaru can beat Oki. I was wondering why Oki was woven so deeply into the qualifying arc even though the plot felt harmonious before. So this was the setup. Is Oki really that strong? He's still undefeated. In the dojo, Oki and Izumi were roughly 50-50, and Izumi was even slightly stronger. But professional exams test mental strength. Hikaru's mentality used to be unstable, but that could be corrected through external training. Izumi's problem is internal. Failing year after year leaves scars. Purely in terms of mentality, Oki is terrifying. Honestly, Hikaru's match against Ko Youngha was probably the peak of his current career. If Oki were truly confident, he wouldn't have reacted so strongly to that game. Now it all comes down to Shirogana's choice. Will Hikaru lose here, fail to qualify, and wait another year? Or will he reach his peak and shatter Oka's dream of a perfect record? This arc is brutal. If Izumi fails again, will he give up Go? Chapter 97, the final match of the Professional Go Player Qualification Tournament. The day after Dream Comic was released, the editorial department of Hojimori Group also came to its weekly performance review. At present, however, all editors responsible for works in Dream Comic Journal felt a faint but unmistakable sense of tension. Everyone could see the current growth momentum of Hikaru no Go. It already possessed the strength to challenge the top 3 positions in the journal. For 2 to 3 years, Fist Armor, Source War Chronicle, and The Wanderer had firmly occupied the top 3 spots. Yet now, no one could say with certainty how long they could withstand the pursuit of Hikaru no Go. The popularity of the TV series was still in the stage of accumulating fans for the Hikaru no Go IP. It took time for TV viewers to catch up through collected volumes and weekly journal purchases, which was why Hikaru no Go remained in 4th place for now. But the real question was, how long could Fist Armor hold on to 3rd place? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Or, this very week? For the editorial department as a whole, the emergence of a work capable of breaking the long-standing dominance of the 3-pillar manga was, in theory, a good thing. But when they considered that Shirogane, a 17-year-old manga artist, had reached this height in the industry, and that such a genius had not been discovered by them, their emotions inevitably grew complicated. Their attitude toward Hikaru no Go, toward Shirogane, and toward Misaki, hovered somewhere above envy and just short of outright jealousy. They all knew, rationally, that Hikaru no Go surpassing Fist Armor was only a matter of time. Yet emotionally, there was an unspoken reluctance to see it rise so quickly. To put it bluntly, an uncontrollable sense of jealousy was at work. Misaki, of course, noticed this shift in atmosphere. She also understood that within the editorial department, many were quietly hoping for Hikaru no Go to stumble, hoping that she and Rei would become the industry's laughingstock, all out of envy. But she didn't mind. Human weakness was something 9 out of 10 people could not escape. And in any case, what they thought would not affect Hikaru no Go's ranking. At 9:30 am, the statistical results for Chapter 41 of Hikaru no Go were released. Weekly votes, 553,698. Ranking, 4th place. Although the ranking remained unchanged, the vote gap between Hikaru no Go and Fist Armor, which ranked 3rd, had shrunk to just 60,000 votes. Only 3 weeks ago, the difference between the two had exceeded 200,000. The premiere of the TV series had nearly doubled the number of Hikaru no Go supporters among Dream Comic readers. Misaki calmly closed the email and glanced at the colleagues around her. She showed no visible emotion. Because there was no need to. Everyone here had worked in the manga industry for many years. How could they fail to judge the situation clearly? As long as Hikaru no Go's plot didn't self-destruct in the coming weeks, whether 1 week, or at most 2, its promotion into the top 3 of Dream Comic Journal was inevitable. And once that happened, no individual, company, or media outlet in the Japan manga industry would dare question whether Hikaru no Go belonged among first-tier manga. While first-tier status is often judged by comprehensive data across the top 5 of the 6 major journals, there is a long-standing consensus. Any manga ranked in the top 3 of a major journal is unquestionably first-tier. As Misaki thought this, goosebumps rose on her arms. After all, Rei was a new manga artist she had discovered only last year. He had entered the industry just 1 year ago. And while Hikaru no Go was still advancing toward 3rd place in Dream Comic, on Friday evening, the 4th episode of the Hikaru no Go TV series premiered. In the episode, Akira sought out Hikaru to play Go once more, only to be rejected. Hikaru no longer wanted to rely on Sai to defeat Akira. He wanted to win, someday, fairly and squarely, using his own strength. Under a gentle, melancholic BGM, Akira stood outside the window in the fading sunset. All he could see was Hikaru's retreating back, and the curtain slowly drawn shut. Akira turned and left. That night, he made a decision, to transfer to Kyo Middle School and join its Go Club, spending an entire year preparing for the campus team tournament that Hikaru planned to enter, all for the sake of playing him again. This short segment alone made countless TV drama viewers break down in tears on Friday night. For some people, black and white manga better conveys the emotions the original author intends. For others, however, the synchronized power of visuals, music, and performance in anime and live-action dramas strikes far deeper. The cast's restrained yet expressive acting, paired with the emotionally charged background music, made this episode resonate profoundly after it aired. It pierced straight into the hearts of viewers. At the very least, everyone was moved by Akira's persistence, and by his willingness to sacrifice an entire year of his youth just to play a single game of Go with Hikaru. And he was only 13 years old. At the same time, following this episode's broadcast, the popularity of Akira's TV drama portrayal surged dramatically. 2 days later, the 4th-week viewership data for October's TV drama market was released. With an average rating of 4.98%, the 4th episode of Hikaru no Go surpassed Clinic in the Reverse Light, which held a 4.92% rating, and, for the first time, claimed the number 1 spot in viewership. For a series with a production budget of just over 20 million, airing in the fiercely competitive Friday 9 p.m. slot, this result was nothing short of explosive. Media outlets rushed to report on it. Even casual drama viewers, those who had never followed Hikaru no Go, were inevitably drawn in by the headlines. Although many instinctively resisted the idea of a Go-themed drama, the fact that it had reached the top of the ratings forced them to reconsider. If it can do this well, they thought, then maybe it isn't the boring Go drama I imagined. During this same period, Volume 5 of the Hikaru no Go manga was released. Unlike the steady success of previous volumes, this one erupted in Japan's manga market. Bookstores saw long lines of fans, both manga readers and TV viewers, waiting to purchase it. In even more stores, volumes 1 through 5 were completely sold out. Unable to endure the weekly cliffhangers any longer, many TV viewers chose to dive straight into the manga, desperate to free their hearts from the relentless suspense. Most popular manga maintain stable sales unless boosted by major adaptations. Their numbers rise steadily, predictably. But Hikaru no Go was different. After the live-action adaptation ignited public interest, its sales surged dramatically in a short span of time. On this month's national manga sales charts, compiled midway through the month, Hikaru no Go had already risen to 1st place. By month's end, cumulative new sales of volumes 1-5 were approaching 7 million copies. The TV series had already claimed the top spot in ratings. Breaking 5% seemed inevitable next week. The manga's popularity ranking breaking into the top 3 now felt only 1 or 2 weeks away. At the same time, the manga's plot had reached the decisive climax of the professional Go qualification tournament. Whether Hikaru would qualify came down to a single remaining match. And as October drew to a close and the weather cooled, another major event loomed: the annual Manga Awards were about to begin. Last year, Rei had won the new Manga Artist Award with Tonight. This year? Looking across all 6 major journals, none of the new artists' works could stand beside Hikaru no Go. In concept, structure, emotional weight, pacing, popularity, and cultural impact, it stood in a completely different league. Some fans had already begun celebrating early. Everyone understood, At last year's New Manga Artist Award, teacher Shirogane had said that he would stand on the awards stage again the following year, and win the annual manga award the year after that. Now, looking at the situation as it stood, it was obvious. If this award were not given to Hikaru no Go, then the credibility of these so-called selection events and awards would be completely meaningless. Soon, time once again arrived at Wednesday. In this version of Hikaru no Go, Rei deliberately chose to omit some overly drawn-out setup segments. In the original manga, after Oka was confirmed as the final obstacle, the story spent 4 or 5 chapters on flashbacks, layered foreshadowing, and bystander psychology before the two players finally faced each other across the board. Rei remembered feeling extremely impatient when he read that part back then. It wasn't that those chapters were poorly written, but Rei was looking forward to something else. He was waiting for better moments. Rei kept only the essential plot points and decisively trimmed what he considered dispensable. What the manga readers wanted to see was simple: Hikaru and Oka playing Go. Not excessive detours. Not endless emotional padding. If the pacing slowed down at such a critical moment, it wouldn't build tension, it would backfire. Fortunately, Hojimori Group was fully cooperative. This week's cover of Dream Comic Journal gave Hikaru no Go absolute prominence. Only 4 figures appeared on the full-color cover. Hikaru and Oka sat across from each other at the Go board, their gazes locked, blades metaphorically drawn. Behind them, Sai stood behind Hikaru. Akira stood behind Oka. Guidance against guidance. Belief against belief. This was not merely a match between Hikaru and Oka. It was also a confrontation between Sai and Akira. With just this single cover, every reader of Dream Comic immediately understood what this week's main storyline was about. Early that morning, Takeda Hiroto arrived at the bookstore. The moment his eyes landed on the cover of this week's journal, his heart began to race. It's finally here. He took a deep breath and picked up a freshly unpacked copy. The final match of the professional Go player qualification tournament. Whether Hikaru could successfully qualify, would be decided right here. Chapter 98, The End. After quickly buying the latest issue of Dream Comic, Hiroto eagerly flipped to the serialization page of Hikaru no Go. As a longtime fan of this magazine, his favorite work had always been Source War Chronicle, but that preference had changed about half a year ago, right here, when he first saw the serialization of Hikaru no Go in this very magazine. Back home, seated at his computer desk, Hiroto took a deep breath. Go, Hikaru no Go, go! He silently cheered in his heart. He was cheering for Hikaru in the manga, and also for Hikaru no Go itself in the magazine. Unlike most readers who only cared about the story, Hiroto closely followed the weekly popularity rankings officially released by Dream Comic. He knew very well that Hikaru no Go was not far from surpassing Fist Armor, which currently ranked 3rd in the magazine. With mixed emotions, Hiroto lowered his gaze to the manga page. The chapter opened on the morning of the final day of the professional Go player qualification tournament. By now, most players already knew whether they had succeeded. For example, if Hikaru won this match, he would qualify with certainty. And if he lost, then, provided Isumi won his own match today, Isumi would advance instead. Likewise, Waya had the same record as Hikaru, but his opponent today was relatively weak, making his chances of losing quite low. There were also those whose elimination had already been decided by their win-loss records, such as Hikaru's friends from the dojo. All of them had come today purely to support him. That's right, with Oka's sharp tongue, it's no wonder he doesn't have anyone cheering for him. Everyone's probably hoping he loses. Even so, Hiroto quickly calculated the situation in his head. Even if Oka loses, it would only be a single loss, he'd still qualify steadily. Compared to that, his thoughts raced. In the end, he let out a sigh. Could Isumi and Hikaru really not advance together? If Isumi hadn't made that fatal blunder in their previous match, if that foul and resignation hadn't shaken both of their mental states and led to their later losses, then under the current win-loss structure, both of them would still have had a chance. Shirogane-sensei, what are you doing? Why are you so cruel? In the manga, Hikaru stood at the entrance, picked up the victory stamp, reserved only for winners, from the recording podium, and pressed it firmly into his palm. I must win. The next moment, Hikaru and the hundreds of players who had fought their way to the final round entered the vast playing hall. Isumi. Waya. Hikaru. Oka. Oka wanted to qualify with a perfect record. The other 3 were locked in direct competition. If all 3 won, Izumi would be eliminated. If Izumi won, then whoever lost between Hikaru and Waya would fall. All four had reasons they could not afford to lose. In the manga, the four sat down at their boards, eyes steady, expressions resolute. That unique blend of romance and cruelty found only in competitive sports surged through Hiruto's chest. Even Oki, the most disliked among them, wasn't truly despicable. His biggest flaw was merely his sharp tongue. He was the kind of person who would lock himself in the restroom after a loss, replaying every mistake in his mind, harsh toward others, but even harsher toward himself. This manga had no villains. There was no scheming, no malice. Everyone simply wanted to win. Everyone wanted victory. How could such people, brought together by a plot Shirogane-sensei had carefully built for over 2 months, culminating in this final round, not move him? At that moment, Hiruto quickly opened his computer, launched his music player, and queued up the classic BGM tracks from the Hikaru no Go TV series. It really feels best to read the manga with the instrumental version of the theme song, personally composed by Shirogane-sensei. His focus returned to the page. Those who still had hope, and those who didn't, had all come to give their final game meaning. Even the bearded Go player who had once tried to disrupt Hikaru's mindset appeared again. Having already confirmed his elimination, he simply gave Hikaru a thumbs up, silently wishing him luck. Hiruto turned the page. Oki, glasses on, expression severe, sat down across from Hikaru. Their eyes met. Behind Hikaru stood Sai. And behind Oki, the phantom image of Akira. Akira is watching this match, through Oki. Hikaru understood it immediately. From the very first chapter, he and Akira had been rivals. Now, 43 chapters later, that sense of fate, that romance of destiny guiding them toward each other on the path of Go, had grown impossibly strong. Akira had become a professional 1 year earlier. And now Hikaru, after a year in the dojo, stood only one victory away from reaching the same starting line. Akira was a genius. But what about Hikaru? Just a little more. Hikaru's hand trembled. Just a little more, Akira. I can reach your world. Hiruto felt a surge of mixed emotions, and his eyes gradually reddened. I won't lose. I absolutely won't lose. I have Akira behind me. What about you, Hikaru? Who is supporting you? Oka's gaze hardened. The game began. The plot soon reached a point Hiruto could no longer fully understand. Although he had tried to seriously study Go after falling in love with Hikaru no Go, reality was cruel. How much could someone really improve in just half a year? He still couldn't comprehend the Go positions in the manga that he wasn't meant to understand. But even if he couldn't read the board, he read the story, page by page, panel by panel. The two placed their stones one after another. In the mid-game, Oka played a brilliant move that instantly changed Hikaru's expression. After a long pause, Hikaru responded with what looked like an insignificant counter-move. Just as Oka believed that Hikaru's confidence had been shattered, that this casual response meant he was rattled. A memory surfaced in Oka's mind. The game between Hikaru and the Korean genius Go player that Akira had told him about. In that match, Hikaru had once placed a stone casually during the mid-game. At the time, it looked bad, almost careless. But dozens of moves later, as the endgame unfolded, that very stone became the key move that reversed the entire situation. Because he remembered that game. The contempt in Oka's eyes vanished instantly. Akira, you really... Hiruto was practically jumping out of his seat. If Akira hadn't abruptly set aside his own training to become Oka's tutor, if he hadn't drilled into Oka the danger Hikaru represented, then this match would have already belonged to Hikaru. The game entered a white-hot phase. Oka's mind repeatedly replayed the meaning behind Hikaru's move. 10 moves. 20 moves. 50 moves. As the simulated variations piled up, Oka finally saw it. That bad move was actually a brilliant one, laid out with dozens of moves in mind. Hikaru didn't panic even after his setup was exposed. Since the trap had been seen through, then so be it. They would decide the match with pure strength. In the manga, the tempo of the game accelerated. Oka's initial advantage was gradually eroded, turning into a brutal stalemate as both sides fought over every stone, every single point. Oka had only received Akira's special training for a single month. But Hikaru? He played Go with Sai for 2 whole years. Every single day, he lost game after game to Sai, sometimes more than 10 games a day. Who has experienced harsher matches than Hikaru? Every game he played against Sai was an uphill battle, and he never won even once. And now he's only slightly behind you, and you think you can defeat him. When it comes to pure strength, how could Hikaru possibly lose to you? Unable to contain himself, Hiruto stood up while reading. By the endgame, Oka's expression finally changed. Hikaru wasn't just catching up relentlessly. In the endgame, he used countless sharp, clever moves to pierce Oka's black stone framework. Hiruto swallowed hard. Even though this was only a manga, his tension felt painfully real. The scene shifted. Izumi had finished his match early and was waiting outside the playing hall for the final results. Then he saw Ya's smiling face after a victory. Which meant, if Hikaru did not lose, Izumi would definitely be eliminated. Hiruto's chest tightened again. Izumi waited alone in the room, anxious for the outcome. In the end, no friends came in to congratulate him. If Hikaru had lost, then Izumi would have advanced. With the number of friends Izumi had at the club, a whole crowd would surely have gathered to celebrate with him. But now, the surroundings were deserted. A trace of sadness appeared on Izumi's face. That could only mean one thing: Hikaru had won. Under the pouring rain, Izumi left the playing hall alone. Hiruto watched the scene with tears welling up in his eyes. He knew he should have been happy. After all, the protagonist Hikaru had defeated Oki and finally become a professional Go player. And yet, at this very moment, his heart ached. On the other side, Oki also returned home alone after his defeat. Even when Akira rushed to Oka's doorstep, hoping to obtain the game record, Oka coldly refused him. The final panel of the chapter showed Akira sitting quietly in the car, his expression solemn. He understood. Hikaru had officially stepped into the world of professional Go. And in the not-too-distant future, they would meet again across the board. Akira murmured softly, "Come on, Hikaru." Hiruto turned the page. The chapter ended there. He leaned back in his computer chair. After a long while, the storm of emotions inside him finally began to settle. So he finally became a professional Go player. 43 weeks, he murmured to himself. From the very first chapter until now, Hikaru, you've finally reached Akira's world. It really wasn't easy. Hiruto felt like crying. There was no joy in his heart, no sense that this outcome was simply the natural reward for Hikaru's efforts. Among those who had lost to Hikaru, some had worked harder than him. Some had cherished the professional qualification tournament far more deeply. Oki. Izumi. Ya. Which one of them had not been immersed in Go since childhood, which one had not challenged the professional exam again and again? And yet, in the end, Izumi failed to qualify. Rather than a sports manga, this felt more like watching real lives unfold. The lives of people who hoped to make a living from Go. Who pursued higher skill, higher ground, higher dreams. Through Hikaru's eyes, Hiruto was merely witnessing their struggles. Were professional Go players in reality also forged step by step like this? The thought lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. Chapter 99, Craze. On this day, Hikaru no Go fans across the internet celebrated as if it were a national holiday. It wasn't limited to the official Hojimori comic journal website. The Capital Television Station, the official website of the Japan Go Association, Go-related live-stream platforms, and even live broadcasts of real Go matches were flooded with fervent fans, all frantically typing the same sentence again and again. Hikaru has passed the professional exam and officially become a professional Go player. Drama viewers, who had only just reached episode 4, were utterly bewildered. Their viewing progress was still worlds away from Hikaru becoming a professional. Meanwhile, real professional Go players in Japan stared at their screens in confusion. What kind of joke was this? Our actual professional matches barely attract viewers, yet you're all celebrating a manga character passing the professional exam? As for the Go Association, they simply went with the flow. They directly pinned the related news to the top of their homepage. They rode the traffic wave without hesitation. On the official Hojimori Comics website, once the long and exhausting professional exam arc finally ended, and after the emotional highs of Hikaru's success gradually settled, an overwhelming wave of complaints aimed at Shirogain erupted almost instantly. So there was absolutely no need for Izumi and Hikaru to meet. If those two hadn't faced each other, Izumi would definitely have passed. Shirogain did this on purpose. But if there's no drama, who would even read the manga? I would. I love happy endings. I want the protagonist and all his friends to live happily and healthily forever, with all their wishes fulfilled. Exactly. Reality is already cruel enough, why do we still have to watch Izumi suffer in a manga? You're not projecting yourself onto Izumi, are you? No matter how many times he fails, Izumi is still one of the top players in the professional exam. At best, we should identify with the nameless characters who don't even qualify. A genius like Izumi has nothing to do with us. So according to the rules, if Izumi failed this time, does that mean he has no chance to become a professional Go player? Not necessarily. According to the story, he still has 1 year left. But he's already too old to stay in the dojo. If he leaves, it'll be hard to find opponents of equal strength. Playing against weaker players for too long, or training alone, can actually ruin a player. That's the hardest part. Honestly, I don't even know how Izumi will improve next year, or rather, how he'll even maintain his current level. I should be happy that Hikaru passed, but because Izumi didn't, I just feel sad all over again. There's no helping it. Izumi's personality is closer to us ordinary people. Hikaru feels more like a once-in-a-generation prodigy who plays Go as if the world itself is his opponent. That's true. Akira trained for 10 years before passing the exam last year. Hikaru has only been playing for 2. I wonder how the story will develop now that he's a professional. Are there any experts here who actually understand the professional Go world? Most likely, it'll be about whether Hikaru can join a team in the Japan A-League. A large portion of a professional Go player's income comes from joining these teams, prize money, match bonuses, and so on. But considering Hikaru's age and strength in the manga, it's hard to say. In reality, many teams wouldn't want a 13 or 14-year-old kid. But in a manga, it all depends on how Shirogane decides to draw it. A-League? Then does that mean he could play against Akira, and even his father, Toya Koyo? There's a chance. But with Hikaru's current strength, that really depends on how Shirogane decides to arrange it. Besides, there are all kinds of world-class tournaments and title matches held every year or two in Japan, Meijin, Kisei, Tenjin, and so on. If Hikaru is strong enough, he can participate in the Meijin League. And if he keeps winning all the way, even a Shodan could challenge Toya Koyo for the Meijin title. And as long as he succeeds, he'd be promoted straight to Kyuden. That insane? Of course. But I'm curious, has there ever been a precedent in Japanese Go history where a Shodan defeated a Kyuden? There have been cases where Shodan played against Kyuden. But actually beating one? I've never heard of it. Maybe, we'll get to see Hikaru pull it off in the manga. The more we talk about this, the sadder I get. Shirogane, don't rest, give us 2 more chapters next week already. Throughout the entire day, discussions surrounding Hikaru no Go completely overwhelmed all other manga topics on the official Hojimori website. And on that same day, the number of people crowding around Rei at the school gate exceeded anything he had ever experienced before. Rei was completely stunned. If things kept developing like this, then when the arc about Sai's disappearance was finally serialized, would he be shoved through the school gate by furious Hikaru no Go fans and beaten up on the spot? Just imagining it made Rei's expression stiffen. He could only hope that fans in Japan would remain rational. As for himself, once that issue was published, he'd run as far as he could and take a leave of absence from school first. The next day, early in the morning, Misaki arrived at the editorial department office of the magazine group. She was the first person to arrive that day. This wasn't because she was particularly diligent, she simply hadn't been able to sleep in. What's Hikaru no Go's ranking this week? And the total vote count? Misaki's expression remained calm and composed, her features gentle and refined. But inside, her thoughts were racing. Last week, the gap in votes between Hikaru no Go and Fist Armor had already narrowed significantly. And this week marked a major climax in the story. Viewership numbers for Hikaru no Go had surged to the top. She felt there was a very real chance that today, it would finally break into the top 3. That morning, everyone in the office seemed a little distracted. Especially Misaki. On average, she checked the time every 10 minutes. Soon, 9:30 a.m. arrived. A new file appeared in her email inbox. Misaki gripped the mouse tightly. She took several deep breaths before finally steadying herself. Then she opened the email and read carefully from top to bottom. 1 Source War Chronicle. 2 The Wanderer. 3 Hikaru no Go, votes, 621,308. 4 Fist Armor, votes, 612,345. 5 Love Prism. After absorbing the key information, Misaki tried her best to restrain her emotions. But some things couldn't be controlled by will alone. Her fingers unconsciously clenched into fists, and an irrepressible urge to cheer surged within her chest. In the end, all of it was compressed into the calm, professional expression she maintained on her face. But her colleagues in the editorial department were far less composed. Congratulations, Editor Misaki. Hikaru no Go has only been serialized for a little over 40 weeks, not even a full year, and it's already reached the top 3 of the journal rankings. Congratulations! Fist Armor has held a top 3 position for 2 consecutive years, and now it's finally been overtaken by Hikaru no Go. Next up are The Wanderer and Source War Chronicle. Editor Misaki, keep going, break their monopoly. Faced with the enthusiastic congratulations of her colleagues, Misaki remained outwardly calm. At exactly 12 p.m., she edited a short message and sent it to Rei, who was on his lunch break. On the school rooftop, Rei slipped his phone back into his pocket. 3rd place in the rankings, hey. At last, Hikaru no Go had reached this point. Rei lowered his gaze to the file Misaki had sent him, which contained detailed data on Source War Chronicle and The Wanderer. Most of the traffic driven by the TV drama adaptation had already been fully absorbed. Reaching 3rd place in the journal rankings would force the editorial group to adjust its strategy, greater exposure, better placement, more resources. But whether Hikaru no Go could ultimately surpass the top 2, that would no longer depend on momentum or external boosts. From this point on, it would be a pure contest of hard strength between the 3 works. Chapter 100, Ideas. 2 days later, the 5th episode of the Hikaru no Go TV series officially aired. It continued to firmly hold the top spot in television viewership for Japanese dramas this quarter, maintaining a stable 5.06% rating. At the same time, first-week sales figures for the newly released 5th volume of the Hikaru no Go manga were announced. In just 1 week, 2.87 million copies were sold nationwide across Japan. Whether in manga volume sales, TV adaptation performance, or serialized magazine rankings, Hikaru no Go had without question become a top-tier manga in Japan. Because of the explosive success of Hikaru no Go, Rei was now frequently featured in reports by major Japanese media outlets, his name appearing alongside many of the country's most established manga artists. Before Rei, the most acclaimed young manga artist in recent years had been the creator from Story Journal. Even she had taken 4 to 5 years to rise from debut to top-tier status. Rei, on the other hand, had debuted just last year. So far, only 1 year and 4 months had passed. Calling this pace riding a rocket would still be an understatement. It was closer to outright cheating. How could anyone grow like this? And now, Hikaru no Go had climbed to 3rd place in the rankings of Dream Comic. So what came next? What would happen to The Wanderer, currently ranked 2nd? And Source War Chronicle, which sat firmly at number 1. It was important to note that both of these works were national phenomena. Their average volume sales exceeded 13 million copies, with total cumulative sales surpassing 300 million copies. From a commercial standpoint, it was difficult to imagine a Go-themed manga like Hikaru no Go surpassing such giants. But rankings in Dream Comic weren't determined by sales alone. In terms of magazine popularity, was it possible that Hikaru no Go could truly unseat them? Naturally, manga media outlets across Japan were not about to miss such a hot topic. Regardless of whether the praise was premature, they praised first and analyzed later. Hikaru no Go surges forward, shattering the 3-pillar manga structure that has dominated Dream Comic for 3 years. Fist Armor falls, what will become of Source War Chronicle and The Wanderer? Small investment, massive returns, Hikaru no Go TV series investors reap huge profits. With an initial investment of only 20 million yen, less than half of the first season had aired, yet investors had already earned nearly 40 million yen in GG revenue sharing. Average volume sales continue to skyrocket. As of publication, Hikaru no Go's average per volume sales had surged to 5.67 million copies. If current momentum continued, sales were projected to exceed 8 million by year's end, and possibly reach 10 million next year. As of today, Hikaru no Go's cumulative sales in Japan had surpassed 25 million copies. Conservatively estimated, the 17-year-old manga artist Shirogana's total income by November would exceed 26 million yen. From 5 cm per second to overnight fame, Shirogana's rise is built on skill alone. In an era where class solidification limits opportunity in many industries, the manga world remains ruthlessly fair. Without skill, success is impossible. For those with talent, however, it remains one of the fastest paths to prominence. Will Hikaru no Go challenge for second, or even first, place this year? Will this young genius debut at the peak, or will his momentum stall at third place? For Hikaru no Go, even reaching the top of Dream Comic once would be a historic achievement. It would set a brand new record. The youngest author ever to rank first in one of the 6 major manga journals. Previously, that record stood at 24 years old. Media coverage and critical discussion surrounding Hikaru no Go flooded every platform. And from the moment it broke into the top 3, its battlefield was no longer limited to Dream Comic alone. Instead, Hikaru no Go would now enter the sightlines of senior editors at the 6 major manga publishing groups, along with industry professionals across the entire market. From this point on, it would inevitably be compared against the top-ranked works of other journals, not just in terms of popularity, but in commercial value, long-term potential, and overall heat. And on this front, REI knew very clearly that Hikaru no Go suffered from an inherent disadvantage. Its subject matter. Hot-blooded battle manga was, without question, the undisputed king of all genres. In his previous life, Slam Dunk could be considered the pinnacle of sports manga. Yet even so, its commercial value had still fallen far short of works like Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if Hikaru no Go truly reached the top of Dream Comics' popularity rankings, its commercial value would very likely remain below that of the current 4th-ranked Fist Armor. And manga publishing groups were, first and foremost, commercial enterprises. The importance they assigned to a work depended solely on one thing: profit. If not for the limitations of its genre, then with Hikaru no Go's current level of recognition and public discussion, the Hojimori Group would likely have already dispatched a full team to negotiate long-term IP development plans with REI. REI silently recalled a sentence he had once read. In Japan, serializing any genre of manga can make you a first-tier artist. But to stand at the very top of the industry, only hot-blooded battle manga can take you there. He stared at the media analysis articles on his screen, lost in thought. There's no point dwelling on this now. The priority is simple: Hikaru no Go must reach the top. It's already third. Stopping at third place is not an option. REI exhaled deeply and lowered his gaze to the manuscript drafts spread across his desk. In truth, Hikaru no Go's serialization had already entered its mid to late stage the moment Hikaru became a professional Go player. What followed would be a succession of highlights. Friendly matches between newly promoted professionals and veteran title holders. The new First Dan tournament. Hikaru's gradual pursuit of the Hand of God. And then, Sai's disappearance. For the next 2 to 3 months, the story would remain at a continuous climax. But that climax would end abruptly with Sai's departure. In his previous life, the disappearance of Sai had caused a massive shock to Hikaru no Go's popularity, triggering widespread fan protests and dissatisfaction. And in this world, REI didn't believe this world's Japanese readers would react any differently. Once Sai's disappearance was serialized, the popularity curve would most likely mirror that of his previous life. And REI himself would soon bring this manga to a close. To put it bluntly, when should a manga like this end? It was impossible for the protagonist to truly become the world's undisputed number one. If the story were forcibly stretched across hundreds of chapters, even the greatest works would eventually be diluted into mediocrity. The Prince of Tennis was a perfect example. When fans spoke of its later Killing Tennis era, most remembered it less as a serious sports manga, and more as unintentional comedy. In contrast, the creator of Slam Dunk, upon realizing he could no longer surpass the emotional peak he had already created, chose to end the story decisively. He didn't allow it to fade in the eyes of readers. That was why, decades later, Slam Dunk was still regarded as a masterpiece. Still a classic. REI contemplated these issues repeatedly before finally letting out a long sigh. Within the next few weeks, he would submit the storyboard drafts concerning Sai's impending disappearance to the editorial department. Up until now, his cooperation with Hojimori Group had been smooth. The editorial team had consistently honored their agreement, never interfering with the direction of the story. But this time was different. This time, REI was preparing to erase the soul of Hikaru no Go. And he had no idea what kind of reaction Hojimori Group would have. Chapter 101, End of the Year and Development. In the weeks that followed, Hikaru no Go entered a transitional phase. After successfully becoming a professional, Hikaru returned to his middle school. Everyone in the school's Go club already knew that their senior, Hikaru, had become a professional Go player. But the manga echoed a familiar truth: times change. People change. Now that Hikaru had stepped onto the professional stage, it became increasingly difficult for him to truly connect with the Go club members, who still regarded Go as a hobby, something to enjoy after class. They were thinking about inter-school tournaments and club activities. Hikaru, meanwhile, was already contemplating the climb from 1st Dan to 9th Dan, title matches, and even the world stage. They were no longer walking the same path. After gradually untangling the emotional knots between himself and the club members, Hikaru was faced with another pressing issue: signing with a Go A-League team. After all, Hikaru had pursued the professional path for one reason above all else: to play against Akira. And Akira was already a member of one of the A-League teams. Of course, beyond the commercial leagues, professional Go players also participated in official competitions organized by the Go Association. And from here, the story formally introduced the new 1st Dan tournament. In nature, it resembled the earlier Young Lion tournament. The Young Lion tournament had been a competition where aspiring professionals and newly promoted 1st Dan players clashed. The new 1st Dan tournament, however, was different. It was a stage where Japan's top-tier professional players faced newly promoted professionals. Under normal circumstances, a multi-title holder like Koya, the celebrity, would never appear in such an event due to his packed schedule. Yet unexpectedly, after learning that Hikaru had just become a professional, Toya Koyo personally contacted the organizers of the new 1st Dan tournament, expressing his willingness to participate. There was only one condition: he would designate his opponent. And without hesitation, the name Toya Koyo chose was the same boy who had abruptly left the board midway through their game 2 years ago. The one who had radiated an extraordinary presence during that match. Hikaru. Naturally, the aura Toya Koyo had sensed back then did not truly belong to Hikaru. It had come from Sai, who stood behind him. In the latest chapter, when Hikaru learned that the Majin himself had designated him as an opponent, excitement surged through him. He wanted to test his own strength. At that moment, Sai could no longer restrain himself. His expression became serious, solemn, burning with anticipation. "Hikaru," Sai said quietly, "let me play this game." This chapter instantly reignited the passion of fans who had found the previous week's plot somewhat subdued. For several consecutive weeks, Hikaru no Go had remained firmly in 3rd place, its popularity votes hovering around 600,000 with little fluctuation. Last week, it had even been ahead of Fist Armor, ranked 4th, by only a few thousand votes, nearly being overtaken. But after this update, Hikaru no Go's popularity surged by 40,000 votes, reaching 640,000. Once again, discussions flooded the Dream Comic forums. Are we getting a peak showdown this soon? Toya Koyo vs Sai. Does this mean we'll finally see Sai play again? I'm losing my mind, this is too exciting. Hikaru won't mess things up again, will he? He clearly wants to play Toya Koyo himself. Is he insane? Playing against Sai every day and still not satisfied? Does he want to get beaten by someone else now? If Hikaru doesn't let Sai play this time, I swear I'll hate this protagonist forever. Sai made it clear from the beginning, his existence is to find the hand of God, and the only way he can do that is by playing against true masters. If Hikaru can't even grant him this one request, that's just selfish. Exactly. Sai helped him become a professional. He played hundreds of games to guide him. If Hikaru won't even give him one match, then this protagonist really is unbearable. You can't put it that way. Hikaru just doesn't want to live forever in Sai's shadow. Once Sai plays seriously, no one can beat him, who would dare challenge Hikaru afterward? This is a real dilemma. Sai. Let's see how Shirogane-sensei handles it. I thought that after the professional promotion arc, Hikaru would face Akira first. I never expected it to be Hikaru vs Toya Koyo. I seriously can't guess where this manga is going anymore. I don't know how this match will end either. Will Sai really find the hand of God? Wait, if Sai actually finds the hand of God, what happens then? No idea. Let's just see how Shirogane-sensei handles it. Go, Shirogane-sensei. On the official forums, an overwhelming number of Hikaru no Go discussion threads erupted almost overnight. At the same time, REI's creator account was flooded with private messages, most of them encouragement, praise, and emotional confessions from fans. Of course, mixed in among them were messages from extremely passionate Psy fans. Some of these fans sent long, detailed essays attempting to correct Rei's creative direction. One particularly memorable suggestion proposed that Hikaru should be hit by a large truck and die, allowing Psy to possess his body and become the protagonist. Rei felt a chill run down his spine reading messages like that. This was a sports manga, not a horror manga. If you weren't the author of Hikaru no Go, you would never realize just how many Psy fans secretly, or openly, wished for Hikaru to be written out entirely, so that Psy could continue playing Go forever. As Hikaru no Go's ranking stabilized at third place and began steadily closing in on second, the TV series also reached its 9th episode. Over the past few weeks, its viewership ratings had settled at around 5.2%. There was no longer much room for further growth. The mutual conversion between manga readers and TV viewers had reached a stable equilibrium. November quietly passed, and time moved into December. The temperature in the Tokyo City region dropped sharply. Rei bundled himself in thick cotton clothing as he attended school. By now, most students were already accustomed to Rei's presence. After all, he regularly held autograph sessions at the school stadium, and any student who wanted a photo or signature was welcome. Once the curiosity of alumni fans had been satisfied, no one made a fuss when encountering him on campus anymore. To put it bluntly, no matter how popular a manga artist became, they were still just a human being. Most students gradually came to understand this, and returned their focus to what truly mattered, studying. Especially the third-year high school students. There were only 6 months left until the college entrance examinations. During this period, Rei was occasionally called into the faculty office to discuss his university preferences. For him, universities in Tokyo area were the obvious first choice. After all, he would continue serializing manga in college, and Hashimori's headquarters were located there. As December progressed, Rei's workload only intensified. In addition to managing manga serialization and TV broadcasts, he also had to cooperate with the animation studio to promote the upcoming Hikaru no Go anime, scheduled to air in January. Add to that the autograph events for the release of Volume 6 of the Tankman. During the first week of December, Rei slept less than 5 hours a day. He had visibly lost weight. Yet despite this, thanks to the overwhelming success of both the manga and TV series, the animated adaptation of Hikaru no Go had already been voted by anime fans as the most anticipated new title of the January-winter season, even though it was still a month away from airing. Pre-orders for the animation's Blu-ray discs also ranked first among all new anime releases of the same period. Meanwhile, the TV production team seized the momentum. With the first season's popularity far exceeding expectations, preparations for Season 2 began almost immediately. At this moment, with the manga, TV series, and anime versions of Hikaru no Go poised to reinforce each other across the market. With industry professionals firmly convinced that this work would enjoy a long serialization and become another enduring pillar of dream comic. Misaki, the editor in charge of Hikaru no Go, encountered something that left her utterly horrified. That day, she reviewed the storyboard draft Rei had submitted for the week. And on it, Rei had killed off Psy. After rereading the storyboard again and again, Misaki felt her scalp go numb. Killing off Hikaru? Fine. As long as Psy possessed his body, countless fans would probably cheer. But killing off Psy? Rei, what are you doing? Don't you understand? The soul of Hikaru no Go, the very reason Hikaru no Go exists, is Psy. Chapter 102, Decision. Rei usually submitted manga drafts 4 to 5 chapters ahead of the currently serialized storyline. And during the serialization of Hikaru no Go, the storyboards he handed to Misaki were often for plots 4 or 5 chapters beyond even those drafts. A normal manga artist would never prepare content for 8, 9, or even 10 weeks into the future at such speed. But Rei was different. His drawing speed was fast enough, and more importantly, he didn't need to struggle over the plot. On top of that, because he had to coordinate and fine-tune the Go matches with Rika in advance, many key story elements had to be prepared long before publication. That was why, in December, Misaki was already staring at the storyboard depicting Psy's disappearance. The moment she finished reading it, her expression went completely blank. Blank in the literal sense. Rei had never seen such a vacant look appear in Misaki's normally sharp, intelligent eyes. What are you drawing? The moment Misaki spoke, Rei felt an invisible pressure descend on the room. Storyboards, Rei replied, taking a deep breath before letting out a light chuckle. I know that, Misaki said slowly. But if I'm not mistaken, in this part of the plot, Sai is written out by you. Permanently. Am I right? Sai has been dead for 1,000 years, Rei said calmly. He existed only to find the hand of God. Now that he's found it, he disappears. That isn't hard to understand, is it? What are you saying? Misaki tried to keep her tone gentle, but it wavered. Your fans will riot. You'll top the list of the most hated manga artists in Japan. I don't mind, Rei replied without hesitation. And besides, time heals everything. Readers will get used to it. Misaki fell silent. Nearby, Miyu, who had been deeply absorbed in planning the ending of her own series Sakura Rain, sensed the tension and turned her head. What she had just overheard was unbelievable. Sai, written out of the story? Her gaze immediately shifted to Rei, filled not with shock, but admiration. If you weren't a manga author, you would never understand how difficult it was to maintain the popularity of a beloved character. Smart characters had to be smarter every time they appeared. Funny characters had to be funnier each time. Passionate characters needed increasingly intense battles. And characters with presence had to grow more dazzling with every scene. If even once a character failed to live up to expectations, they would be ridiculed mercilessly, just like certain overhyped characters in past works. Yet authors were human. Their ability to escalate a character infinitely had limits. Sai was the most popular character in Hikaru no Go. His role in the early story was irreplaceable, Hikaru's guide, his teacher, his most cherished Go master. But, after Hikaru became a professional Go player, where could Sai's role still exist? Continue helping Hikaru win professional matches? That would destroy the protagonist entirely. A professional player still relying on a spirit to cheat his way to victory? The manga might as well be renamed, Hikaru, King of Cheating. From a creator's perspective, Miyu had long been troubled by this exact issue while reading Hikaru no Go. But she never imagined that, Rei would actually have the courage to write Sai out of the story. Yes, Rei said lightly. The plot of Sai's disappearance was decided before Hikaru no Go even began serialization. He looked at Misaki. Editor Misaki, do you still remember what we agreed upon before we started working together? After a long pause, Misaki answered quietly. Neither the editor nor the Hojimori group shall interfere with the author's plot decisions for any reason. This, Rei said calmly, is the final direction of Hikaru no Go. Sai will disappear in this chapter. And after that, the manga will move toward its conclusion as quickly as possible. His words sent shockwaves through the room. Misaki's expression changed dramatically. Miyu couldn't help but speak at the same time. Rei, what are you thinking? How can it end like that? Rei was still a newcomer to the manga industry. But the sisters understood the Japanese manga world all too well. Most manga artists were lucky to have one hit work in their entire lives, and they would cling to it, extend it, and live off it forever. Even for top-tier manga artists, it was highly likely that the work they released after becoming famous would be cancelled due to poor popularity. Hikaru no Go was riding high now, ranked firmly in the top 3 of Dream Comic. By all logic, this manga should be serialized for 3 to 5 years at the very least. Even if its commercial value couldn't compare with hot-blooded battle manga, it could still bring Rei tens of millions in annual income. So why was he thinking about ending it in less than a year? I told you before, didn't I? Rei said calmly. I already planned the entire story of Hikaru no Go, all the way to the ending. And in my mind, he continued, the ending of Hikaru no Go is right here. Then what? Miyu finally set down her brush and walked over. In the end, does Hikaru become a 9th Dan? Win a title? Become world champion? No. Then what about Akira? She asked. Their match? Rei smiled. Hikaru and Akira are rivals for life. How could their relationship ever be decided by one game, or even 100 games? The ending of this manga is meant to be open. A competitive sports story doesn't need to show its protagonist reaching the absolute summit, Rei continued evenly. It only needs to show growth. When characters grow from ordinary people, ignorant, flawed, incomplete, into individuals the audience recognizes as capable, as people with the inner strength to keep walking forward no matter what challenges await them. That, he said, is when the story is complete. Misaki and Mayu exchanged a glance. The logic made sense. But it was too idealistic. This is too important, Misaki finally said. I need to discuss this with Editor-in-Chief Han. She paused, holding back the rest of her thoughts. She still remembered the condition of their cooperation. She was not to interfere with Rei's creative direction. Even though she was unwilling 1,000 times over, to see Hikaru no Go end this way, she still didn't voice her opposition. Because compared to Hikaru no Go itself, Rei, the 17-year-old who had created it, was even more valuable. Even if most top-tier manga artists only produced one nationally popular hit in their lifetime, she felt that Rei could create a second. And a third. Perhaps even works that surpassed Hikaru no Go. Then aren't you worried, Mayu asked quietly, that you won't be able to create a manga better than Hikaru no Go in the future? I will, Rei answered without hesitation, smiling. So confident. Mayu's eyes lit up. Do you already have a concept for your next work? At that moment, Misaki's expression tightened. How could I? Rei laughed. I have absolutely no idea right now. If I did, you wouldn't be looking at Hikaru no Go storyboards, you'd be looking at drafts for my new manga. Then where did that confidence come from? The conversation ended there. Rei's stance was clear. And he knew that even if Misaki had doubts, her personality meant she would respect his decision. The real obstacle lay with the Hojimori group. But Rei wasn't overly concerned. In the end, cooperation was about mutual benefit. The manga copyright belonged to him. Profits were split between both sides. In fact, Rei's share wasn't even large, the royalty rate for collected volumes was only 7%. How the story progressed, how it ended, those decisions belonged to him. When Hikaru no Go was unpopular, he had no say in whether it would be cancelled. So why? Now that it was popular, should even its ending be dictated by the magazine? Still, Misaki didn't immediately report the matter to the group. After all, people changed. Perhaps next week, Rei would change his mind. And just as Misaki was holding on to that faint hope, on Wednesday, the latest chapter of Hikaru no Go was officially released in Dream Comic. Chapter 103, The Game. Because last week's cliffhanger in Hikaru no Go had been so infuriating, it was obvious that early this morning, a huge number of fans could no longer hold back. The moment bookstores in major cities opened, crowds rushed straight for the manga shelves. Aoyama was one of them. As a Hikaru no Go fan, her reason for following the series until now was simple. She liked Sai. That was all. She didn't dislike the protagonist Hikaru because of Sai, but this bratty protagonist constantly refused to let Sai play Go, and that alone was enough to make her uncomfortable. What was worse, judging from last week's plot, Hikaru still didn't seem to have any intention of letting Sai play. Recalling that frustrating chapter, Aoyama quickly bought the magazine, rushed home, and sat down in her computer room to read. That game, let me play that game, Hikaru. Sai's expression was extremely serious. Aoyama Ui immediately straightened. Then, just as expected, Hikaru began making excuses. He talked about how high-ranking players in the new First Dan tournament would give handicaps to newly promoted professionals. He argued that if Toyokoyo gave Sai a handicap, Sai would surely win. And then what? Wouldn't that create explosive headlines about First Dan professional Hikaru defeating Meijin Toyokoyo? But, did any of that actually matter? What mattered was simple. Sai wanted to play Go. This wasn't even his first chance to play against Toyokoyo. They had once been face-to-face before. And you ran away in the middle of the game. No matter how you looked at it, even as compensation, you should let Sai play. To you, this was just a practice match with Toyokoyo. But to Sai, the answer to a 1,000-year pursuit might lie in this very game. After only 2 pages, Aoyama was already seething. Then tell me, when will you let me play Go? Sai's emotions finally leaked out. His voice carried a trace of urgency. You have eternity anyway, Hikaru replied. You're not in a hurry. Even if I die, you can just possess a third person, a fourth person. Sooner or later, you'll find the hand of God. Aoyama's fingers clenched. This logic was twisted. Since when did having infinite time mean you could procrastinate forever? That was the exact same mindset as people who kept postponing everything until tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and tomorrow again, until they grew old and achieved nothing. Human civilization itself was only a few thousand years old. Who dared to talk about eternity? And if one day no one played Go anymore, the game itself would vanish into history. When that happened, where would Sai find an opponent to pursue the hand of God? Hikaru. I don't know why, but I've been feeling uneasy lately. I don't know how long I can stay in this world. Aoyama's fingers trembled. She leaned closer to the page, staring at those words. Shirogane-sensei, this isn't foreshadowing, is it? Or was this deliberate misdirection, a false hint meant to stir discussion? What does it matter? Hikaru said indifferently. It's just meaningless unease. Aoyama let out a slow sigh. Strictly speaking, Hikaru wasn't a bad kid. But when it came to Go, he truly didn't think about Sai at all. Sai had helped him for 2 full years. Was it really so hard to take one risk and let Sai play? Even if Sai won and caused controversy, so what? Let them talk. What were you afraid of? You weren't afraid of losing. You were afraid of winning. Then came the sentence that hurt the most. When you possess your next host, let him allow you to play Go. Aoyama stared at those words for a long time. Then she turned the page. Sai's sorrow surfaced quietly, filling his eyes. Hikaru, are you truly never going to let me play Go with anyone else again? There was no sound. Just black and white ink. Yet Aoyama felt a sharp ache in her chest. Sai. He was just too pitiful. Time leapt forward to the day of the new first Dan tournament. Before the match between Hikaru and Toyokoyo began, Kawabara, the Go Saint, and Ogata, a 9th Dan, entered a private observation room next door. The two discussed Toyokoyo's unusual decision to personally designate Hikaru as his opponent. As Hikaru and Toyokoyo entered the match room, Toyokoyo casually mentioned that Akira would also be watching. And finally, he said, today, show your full strength. The words carried a deeper meaning. Aoyama's heart tightened. Among all the Go players who had appeared in the manga so far, only 2 were truly special. One was Toyokoyo. The other was Kawabara, the Go Saint. Although they could not see Sai, they were still able to vaguely sense the aura of a top-tier Go player emanating from Hikaru. That was why they paid attention to him. And then, a classic scene appeared. Just as Hikaru still hadn't figured out how he should face Toyokoyo, after Toyokoyo took his seat, Sai moved first. Before Hikaru could react, Sai sat down opposite the Go board, directly meeting Toyokoyo's gaze. Hikaru, sitting beside him, was completely stunned. But Aoyama's heart surged with excitement. Sai's expression had never been this serious before. He stared intently at Toyokoyo across the board. Knowing that the man before him was the strongest Go player of this era. Knowing that if the hand of God truly existed, it could only be found by playing against such an opponent. To outsiders, Hikaru was merely staring blankly at an empty seat, reluctant to sit down. But inside his heart, Hikaru was shouting. Sai, get out of the way. Inside the observation room, Kawabara and Ogata became interested by the scene and casually began betting on the outcome. Kawabara immediately placed his bet on Hikaru. I never make bets I can't win, Kawabara said lightly. Or are you the same? He turned to look at Ogata, Toyokoyo's disciple and a 9th Dan. Are you also betting on that kid to win? The atmosphere instantly became tense. Akira, who was also watching, remained silent, his eyes fixed only on the Go board displayed on the monitor. The perspective shifted back to the game venue. Sai slowly stood up, his expression full of grievance, tears welling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Hikaru. I just wanted to sit there for a moment. He looked at the seat opposite Toyokoyo and spoke softly. In an instant, Aoyama felt her eyes sting. A Go spirit who had pursued the hand of God for 1,000 years, yet had no hands with which to play Go. Unable to face the opponent he acknowledged, he could only experience the atmosphere like this. Damn it, Hikaru, just let him play once, okay? Just once. Let him play against Toyokoyo once. Urged by the staff nearby, Hikaru finally sat down, his expression strained. Sai, this opportunity really is rare. But if Majin Toyokoyo gives you a handicap, you'll definitely win. I don't want to become the center of attention. Wait, handicap. Hikaru suddenly thought of something. At the same moment, Aoyama thought of it too. If Sai bears a 15-point handicap, then he won't be able to play Go the way he normally does. And Sai immediately understood Hikaru's thoughts. He turned around and said, I am willing. I am willing to bear a 15-point handicap and play against Toyokoyo. The plot progressed rapidly. Soon, Sai was sitting beside Hikaru, guiding him as the game began under the condition of a 15-point handicap. The story then entered a Go game segment that Aoyama couldn't fully understand. But despite that, she found it thrilling. To win under such an overwhelming handicap, Sai could not play in his usual style. He had to build an enormous advantage, laying out a massive trap for Toyokoyo. Because of this, Sai's opening moves and Josuke were completely different from the start. He launched an all-out offense from the opening. Under the pressure of a 15-point handicap, this game could only end in two ways. Either Hikaru would be crushed, or Toyokoyo would be crushed. There was no room for cautious territory battles. Only total dominatio, or total defeat. To outsiders, the game looked chaotic, messy, utterly lacking the refinement expected of professional Go. But Aoyama was more excited than ever. In the manga, Sai used a folding fan to guide Hikaru's moves. Akira, watching from nearby, was utterly bewildered. Ogata frowned in confusion. Only Toyokoyo himself, and Kawabara, the Go Saint, wore increasingly grave expressions. Especially Toyokoyo. Just from his face alone, Aoyama could tell, he was truly playing seriously. Soon, Toyokoyo's inner thoughts appeared as he looked at Hikaru's back. This layout appears chaotic, but it is in fact extremely profound. And more than that. He's only a newly promoted first dan. Just a 14-year-old child. So why does he carry such pressure? Such vigilance caused Toyokoyo not to take the stones Hikaru offered him. As a result, the elaborate trap Sai had prepared ultimately failed. Hikaru resigned midway through the game. The spectators in the observation room left in disappointment. Only Akira remained behind, approaching Kawabara with a puzzled expression. Kawabara smiled. This game was truly fascinating, he said. If there's another like it, I'll still bet on that kid. This game, if you consider it as him giving himself a massive handicap, everything becomes clear. On the other side, Toyokoyo also spoke slowly after seeing Hikaru resign. Next time, he said. I hope you will play against me without a handicap. They all understood. Thinking of this, Aoyama's heart burned with excitement. She hurriedly turned the page, only for the chapter to end abruptly right there. An emptiness washed over her. Followed by overwhelming anger. Shirogain. Do you have any sense of public ethics? You could have drawn 2 pages less. You could have drawn 2 pages more. And you chose to end it here? Ending mid-conversation was already cruel enough. Ending the entire chapter right here. Didn't you know manga fans would be left hanging for an entire week? Toyokoyo and Kawabara both realized that Hikaru was playing with a handicap. They both saw Sai's terrifying hidden strength. So what comes next? What happens next? Will Sai and Toyokoyo finally play a real game? It was unbearable. This plot. Couldn't you have just drawn 1 more page? Chapter 104, New Year. For the vast majority of manga readers in Japan, Hikaru no Go felt exactly like this. Whenever it seemed that the story was starting to slow down, that sense that the plot was becoming a little dull, the very next chapter would give birth to a new climax. Last week, Hikaru had been mocked across the entire internet for being selfish. But in this week's chapter, his tactical adjustment on the board completely overturned public opinion. What everyone had assumed would be another week of Hikaru being crushed by Toyokoyo took an utterly unexpected turn. The only problem was, the cliffhanger was simply unbearable. Starting from daytime, fans of both the Hikaru no Go manga and TV series became active at the same time. Even though I know Shirogane-sensei is working insanely hard, I still have to criticize him. No matter how many chapters you update, a cliffhanger addict deserves to be criticized. Please, Shirogane-sensei, post the next Hikaru no Go draft on your creator account. I'll do anything. I was moved again. It turns out Go matches don't need dialogue. Toyokoyo clearly felt Sai's strength, he didn't think it was random nonsense at all. Shirogane-sensei is incredible. Toyokoyo the Magen and Kawabara the Go Saint are the true national Go players in my heart. Compared to them, some real-life young champions are, well. One streams electronic Go all day, another does weird abstract live streams, and some even dress up and shoot comedy skits. They're strong, sure, but it's honestly hard to watch. Stop, I'm already laughing just thinking about them. Go players are human too, okay? They need to let loose sometimes. It's just a shame about this match. The 15-point handicap Sai carried was way too much. At the top level, Go games are usually decided by 1 or 2 points. A 15-point gap only happens when the players are on completely different tiers. How could Toyokoyo just let someone kill a giant dragon and lose that badly? Sai losing this game isn't unjust. I really want to see these two play a fair match. Shirogane-sensei, don't drag it out, serve it up already. Didn't Toyokoyo say at the end of the chapter that if there's a next time, he wants to decide who moves first? That's basically confirmation they'll play again. Other manga plots are honestly easy to guess, but Hikaru no Go? I genuinely can't predict it. By the way, how many people here still don't understand Go at all, but have followed this manga all the way? Me. Me too. I don't understand Go, I'm interested but lazy, so I never actually learned it. Still, I've never missed a single update. Before Hikaru no Go, I always thought subject matter was everything. Pick an unpopular theme and you're doomed. But now I think the most important thing is the plot. With this story, even if you changed Go to chess, shogi, or any other game, it would still work. Amid the overwhelming forum discussions, the popularity votes displayed on the Hojimori group's backend surged dramatically. The next morning, as usual, Misaki worked while waiting for the latest ranking update for Hikaru no Go. During breaks, she also checked discussions on the official website of the Hikaru no Go TV series. After all, a large portion of manga readers and TV viewers overlapped. Since its premiere, the Hikaru no Go TV series had already aired 10 episodes, maintaining the #1 ratings spot for 6 consecutive weeks, with viewership climbing to 5.43%. Originally, the production team had planned to rest for several months after completing the first season, before slowly preparing the second. However, the show's sponsorship appeal had been far too fierce. Advertisers flooded in, all eager to place their brands during the broadcast of Hikaru no Go. The television station was, at its core, a commercial entity. Faced with such enthusiasm, it quickly coordinated with all parties and approved the production team to begin filming Season 2, scheduled to air in January of next year, without any real downtime. This left the original investors in the TV series completely stunned. When they first invested, it had only been at the request of the Go Association, with the modest goal of promoting the game of Go. Who could have imagined that the series would not only succeed, but make so much money? Misaki watched an interview video online, where the investors were laughing uncontrollably, unable to hide their delight. She couldn't help but smile faintly as well. But the smile quickly faded. Because REI's plan to write Sai out of the story still hadn't been resolved. And REI showed no sign whatsoever of changing his mind. If things continued to develop at this pace, Misaki knew it might not even take 2 weeks before she would be forced to bring this matter to the senior management of the editorial department. Ah! She let out a soft sigh, then noticed the notification popping up on her computer and opened the document. This week's Dream Comic rankings were, on the surface, almost identical to last week's. First place, Source War Chronicle. Second place, The Wanderer. Third place, Hikaru no Go. But the real change lay elsewhere. This week, Hikaru no Go ranked third with 702,135 votes. The Wanderer, in second place, had 713,698 votes. The gap between them was now only a little over 10,000 votes. As for Source War Chronicle, it still maintained a commanding lead, with this week's votes reaching 869,875. However, with Hikaru no Go's momentum becoming increasingly ferocious, fans of both Source War Chronicle and The Wanderer had already begun to feel a strong sense of crisis. On the official Hojimori Group website, Hikaru no Go fans were now effectively being suppressed from both sides. Whenever a post praising Hikaru no Go's plot appeared, fans of the other two series would immediately swarm in to disrupt it. If Dream Comics' popularity system hadn't limited voting to 1 vote per ID, these angry fans would have long since drowned Hikaru no Go in mass negative ratings. Even so, although Hikaru no Go had not yet reached the top spot, its reputation score and in-magazine evaluation stood at an unchallenged 9.5, far ahead of every other serialized work. Misaki stared at the data for a long time before letting out another quiet sigh. REI. If Hikaru no Go continued growing at this rate, surpassing The Wanderer was a near certainty. And overtaking Source War Chronicle? It was no longer unthinkable. But if the story truly continued toward Sai's disappearance, then the chapter in which Sai vanished would likely be serialized at the exact moment Hikaru no Go began directly contending with Source War Chronicle for the top spot. Would enraged readers abandon the manga en masse? Would its popularity crash overnight, forcing an early end? Misaki clenched her fingers unconsciously. Over the following weeks, Hikaru no Go's plot progressed steadily. Hikaru successfully signed with a Go A-League team, and after entering the league, every opponent he faced was a professional Go player from Japan. Not long after joining the A-League, Hikaru finally encountered his destined rival, Akira. However, on the morning of the match, Akira failed to appear and forfeited the game. After investigating through multiple channels, Hikaru eventually learned the reason. Akira's father had been hospitalized due to illness. At this point, Hikaru no Go fans across Japan had no way of knowing how this event, the hospitalization of Akira's father, would connect to the earlier plotlines involving Sai, Toyokoyo and the legendary Hand of God. After all, Rei had not yet completed the draft for this chapter. He was still waiting for Rika to provide the endgame records from 2 top professional Go players. And so, time continued to flow. 1 year ended. A new year arrived. After January began, the metropolitan region experienced its coldest temperatures of the year. During the 3-day New Year holiday, Rei stayed home, spending all 3 days immersed in drawing manga drafts. Meanwhile, in the Japanese manga and anime market, a major shift was quietly taking place. In the January winter anime season, the landscape could only be described as undergoing a dramatic upheaval. Thanks to the explosive popularity of both the manga and TV series, Hikaru no Go's anime had become widely known among anime fans even before its premiere. In Japan, the vast majority of otaku followed both anime and manga. However, most manga readers only chose 1 or 2 series from the 6 major magazines to follow long-term. In contrast, many general anime viewers first encountered popular manga through television broadcasts. Typically, when a manga received an anime adaptation, that was when its popularity truly exploded. After all, converting anime viewers into manga readers was far easier than converting TV drama viewers. Even before airing, Hikaru no Go ranked as the most anticipated anime among hundreds of new titles in the January winter season. Combined with the second season of the TV drama and the ongoing manga, the fan bases of all 3 versions began converting into one another at an astonishing speed. Although The Wanderer's recent plot developments were also highly engaging, causing its votes to rise, Hikaru no Go's pursuit was clearly faster. Then, Wednesday arrived. January 6th. Hikaru no Go Chapter 50 was officially serialized. And printed prominently on the very first page was the chapter title. Sai vs. Toyokoyo. In an instant, the passion of every Hikaru no Go fan was ignited. Chapter 105, Toyokoyo vs Sai. Just the chapter title alone was enough to make Hikaru no Go fans' blood boil. The main plot of this chapter revolved around Akira's father collapsing from illness and being hospitalized. However, he was about to participate in a title defense match and could not simply remain in the hospital waiting for his condition to improve. Thus, introduced by his trusted disciple Ogata, Toyokoyo gradually turned his attention to online Go. Hikaru, who came to visit Toyokoyo, noticed this as well. After careful consideration, and only after the other visitors had left, Hikaru finally spoke, asking Toyokoyo about online Go. Although I don't play online Go myself, I have a friend who loves it very much. And that person really hopes to play against you, teacher Toyokoyo. His online name is Sai. These were Hikaru's words. Toyokoyo responded with a sharp gaze and a serious expression. I know this person. Ogata once arranged a match between Akira and him. Sai, is he your friend? From this moment on, the conversation became subtly charged. Toyokoyo made it clear that he disliked playing against opponents who hid their identities and hoped Hikaru would bring this Sai to play in person. He also stated plainly that even if Sai possessed some skill, he would definitely win. But Sai could not accept such words. He desperately hoped that Toyokoyo would treat this game with absolute seriousness. And then, Hikaru spoke the most crucial line of the chapter. Teacher Toyokoyo. I still hope you'll take this game seriously. Because I don't want you to use not playing seriously as an excuse when you lose. Toyokoyo's eyes narrowed. Are you saying I will lose? I'm just hypothesizing. Hypothesizing. I will never lose. If I do, I will retire from professional Go. Please don't say that, we don't want that. It seems you really think I might lose. Very well. If I truly lose this game, I will retire from the professional Go world. The final page of the chapter froze on that moment. Toyokoyo sitting upright on the hospital bed, staring intently at Hikaru. Beside Hikaru, Sai's gaze was even sharper, fixed firmly on Toyokoyo. The tension between the two sides felt as if it might burst straight through the page. This chapter completely ignited the passion of Hikaru no Go fans across Japan. Finally, after 50 chapters of waiting, I finally get to see this scene. This is it. An unreserved match between Sai and Toyokoyo, the current number 1. I've got goosebumps. I'm actually shaking. Who said the story after Hikaru became a professional was boring? This is the most exciting arc in the entire series. Sai vs. Toyokoyo, what kind of divine setup is this? So this is where Shirogane-sensei's early foreshadowing was leading. Amazing. Shirogane-sensei is amazing. Sai is amazing. Toyokoyo is amazing. Hikaru, I apologize. A few weeks ago I called you selfish. I was blind. I didn't expect you to bring up online Go the moment you heard about it. I never realized online Go could be this important. This is truly one of humanity's greatest inventions. So the next chapter is a direct confrontation. Putting his entire career on the line, Toyokoyo is too cool. It's been years since I've seen a Go player this imposing in a manga. Can Sai really beat Toyokoyo? Ask Toyokoyo if he'll be embarrassed after talking so big. If Sai wins, will he really retire? While the readers were burning with excitement, inside the Hojimori group's backend, the statisticians felt something was off. For the first time, they saw that from the very start of the day Hikaru no Go's popularity votes had steadily surpassed the Wanderer. And were even rapidly closing the gap with Source War Chronicle. In truth, after seeing the daytime voting curve, many of them already had a feeling. Could it be, will the rankings change this very week? That evening, Misaki stared at the overwhelming praise flooding the internet for the latest chapter. She let out a quiet sigh. 2 full weeks had passed. And REI still showed no intention whatsoever of changing the future direction of Hikaru no Go. Since that was the case, late that night, bent over her desk, Misaki began writing something. The next morning, when she stepped into the Hojimori Group editorial department, she immediately sensed that the atmosphere had changed. Especially among the other 19 editors responsible for works in Dream Comic. Almost all of them looked at Misaki at the same time. Editors didn't rely solely on the statistics department to judge trends. Everyone already knew. Last week, Hikaru no Go's votes had been dangerously close to the Wanderer, ranked 2nd. And this week, with such a universally acclaimed chapter that pushed the story into a full-blown climax, the outcome was obvious. Popularity votes were tightly bound to the plot itself. And this chapter was, without exaggeration, the biggest highlight since serialization began. At that moment, Akito, the editor in charge of The Wanderer, could only sigh repeatedly. There was nothing he could do. Even if he could foresee certain things, he could not stop them. The Wanderer had accumulated 4 years of fans, along with a TV drama, anime, games, and cross-industry collaborations. Its popularity in Japan was already enormous. But facing Hikaru no Go's relentless advance, there was simply no answer. Even though The Wanderer had also entered a recent plot climax and was receiving widespread praise from manga readers, there was still a clear difference. This is really uncanny. Akito muttered uneasily. That Shirogane kid, he really debuted just over a year ago. Deep down, Akito already knew the answer. Hikaru no Go was almost certain to surpass The Wanderer in the rankings this week. Still, a sliver of hope lingered. What if his judgment was wrong? What if some kind of accident happened? But in reality, there was no accident. At 9:30 a.m., the results email arrived in every editor's inbox. When the editors opened it, all they could do was sigh. 1 Source War Chronicle, 841,356 votes. 2 Hikaru no Go, 761,358 votes. 3 The Wanderer, 701,998 votes. 4 Fist Armor, 61,325 votes. Across the 20 serialized works in Dream Comic, most series fluctuated within a predictable range, usually no more than 10,000 votes up or down. Only Hikaru no Go was different. Akito had expected it to overtake The Wanderer. But surpassing it by nearly 60,000 votes? That was beyond anything he had anticipated. Just last week, Hikaru no Go's total votes had barely crossed 700,000. Could a single, well-executed chapter really boost popularity by this much? Some things were hard to accept, but facts were facts. According to the unwritten customs of the editorial department, Akito still took the initiative to congratulate Misaki. After that, he turned his gaze to Shin, the middle-aged editor in his 40s responsible for Source War Chronicle. Last year, both of them had attended the Dream Comic serialization meeting, and both had supported Hikaru no Go's launch. Reality had proven their judgment correct. And yet, in some sense, they had also misunderstood the manga. At the time, they had believed Hikaru no Go would be a high-quality but niche work, something that might struggle into the top 10. The plot was excellent, yes, but its subject matter would surely limit it. But now? Hikaru no Go had become the biggest dark horse in the Japanese manga industry over the past 3 years. Its theme limited its commercial IP ceiling. Even now, despite ranking second in popularity in Dream Comic, its overall IP value might not even place it in the journal's top 6. But, popularity was not measured purely by commercial value. Readers didn't care how many games a manga was adapted into. They didn't care whether it was ideal for merchandise. If it was suitable, they'd buy it. If not, it didn't affect how they judged the work itself. No one thought The Wanderer was more classic than Hikaru no Go just because it had a few game adaptations. Those things only mattered to publishing groups. In the eyes of readers, a manga's status depended on just 2 things: was it interesting? Did it move them? And by every metric that mattered to fans, popularity, reputation, fanbase size, per volume sales, critical evaluation, Hikaru no Go was already a first-tier manga. And even among first-tier works, it stood at the very top. If it continued serializing at this pace, it would undoubtedly leave a mark in the history of the Japanese manga industry. Lost in thought, Akito walked over to Shin and let out a bitter smile. You and Kusuk better keep your guard up. Don't let the number 1 spot in Dream Comic be snatched away by the combination of our editorial department's youngest editor, and the group's youngest contracted minor manga artist. Shin smiled calmly at his longtime rival. What are you worrying about? He replied confidently. We've competed for years, and your Wanderer still couldn't cross the mountain that is Source War Chronicle. For that so-called genius Shirogane, reaching second place on Dream Comic during his first serialization is already his limit. If he treats Source War Chronicle as an opponent, he'll only despair. Relax, Shin said lightly. If Hikaru no Go wants to surpass Source War Chronicle, wait until his next life. Akito froze for a moment. He knew Shin, despite being over 40, was still childish, someone who even cosplayed characters from Source War Chronicle at conventions. But even so, saying something like this now? You've been an editor for so many years, don't you realize that saying things like this is exactly how cannon fodder characters get flagged and crushed by protagonists in manga? While the two were talking, editors throughout the department began congratulating Misaki. Congratulations, Misaki! Misaki, you're incredible! This year's Best Editor award is definitely yours. Misaki listened to the praise with her usual professional smile, thanking everyone politely. Yet anyone paying attention could tell, she wasn't in the mood to talk. After the crowd dispersed, she took a deep breath, picked up the printed report in her hands, stood from her chair. And under the puzzled gazes of the surrounding editors, she walked straight to Editor-in-Chief Han's office and pushed the door open. Oh, Misaki, what brings you here? Han smiled when he saw Misaki. In his original expectations, although he had wanted to strongly support the young manga artist Shirogane, he believed it would take 2 or 3 years for the boy to achieve any real success. Yet Hikaru no Go had reached this level in less than a year. This far exceeded not only his personal expectations, but the expectations of the entire group. Strictly speaking, the commercial value of Hikaru no Go was not particularly high. But the reputation value that the genius manga artist Shirogane brought to Dream Comic was something almost impossible to quantify. Nowadays, when manga fans across Japan talked about a manga prodigy, the first name that came to mind was no longer the veteran artist from Story Journal, but Dream Comics' Shirogane. That kind of brand impression was priceless for a manga group. If Shirogane could grow into a first-tier manga artist at Dream Comic in less than 2 years, then why couldn't they? This line of thinking had taken root among many young creators. As a result, among the 6 major manga groups, Dream Comic now received the highest proportion of submissions from talented new artists. On top of that, in the capital market, Hojimori Group's reputation for cultivating young talent had significantly boosted investor confidence, driving the stock price up by a noticeable margin. "I came to discuss something with you, Editor-in-Chief," Misaki said. "It's about the manga I'm responsible for, Hikaru no Go. There's a major divergence in plot direction, and the creator, Shirogane, has expressed his intention to bring the manga to an early conclusion." The moment Misaki finished speaking, Han's expression changed. For an instant, he almost thought he had misheard. After confirming it several times in his mind, a heavy feeling sank into his chest. Popular manga running into problems in their mid to late stages was nothing new. At such times, experienced editors rarely relied solely on their own judgment. Instead, they reported the situation upward, seeking a more comprehensive evaluation. Throughout Han's career, he had seen too many popular works suffer simultaneous collapses in reputation and popularity. Either because the creator lacked narrative control, or because they clung stubbornly to so-called artistic integrity, refusing advice and producing storylines that alienated readers. One of the most classic examples was from 3 years ago, a manga ranked 4th in Story Journal, where the female lead suddenly fell in love with the male lead's brother. Within 3 months, the series' popularity had plummeted straight to the cancellation line. Seeing Misaki's serious expression, Han felt his unease deepen. He quickly took the document from her hands and began reading. The report outlined the future plot trajectory of Hikaru no Go, as well as Shirogane's plan to wrap up the series within a few months. When Han reached the key section, his brows slowly furrowed. Sai, the most popular character in the series, would find the hand of God, and then disappear. After that, the manga would conclude once the protagonist Hikaru resolved his inner conflict and chose how to walk forward alone. From the perspective of a professional editor, honestly speaking, Han felt that this ending was quite good. From a purely personal standpoint, as an old editor, he had never liked excessively dragged-out manga. If Hikaru no Go were serialized until Hikaru became a 3-dan, 5-dan, or 9-dan companion, its reputation would almost certainly collapse in the later stages. And historically speaking, many manga reached a point where extension was no longer a choice, no matter how popular the work was. If The Prince of Tennis had continued indefinitely, it would have devolved into absurd killing tennis. If Bleach had not ended when it did, forcibly stretching into arcs like Fullbring and introducing characters like Waiwak, it would have become a punchline among its own fans. As for Sai, Han understood the problem very clearly. If Sai was not allowed to play Go, readers would accuse the protagonist of being selfish. If Sai was allowed to play Go, then Hikaru's role as the protagonist would inevitably be undermined. When Hikaru was a child, readers were more forgiving. But once he became a professional Go player, continuing in that manner would raise uncomfortable questions. Was he relying on a spirit to win? Was he seeking fame through unfair means? What kind of protagonist could withstand such accusations? Chapter 106, Results. What did Shirogane say? Han asked. He was very firm, Misaki replied after taking a deep breath. He said that when the character Sai was created in the very first chapter of Hikaru no Go, Sai's ending had already been decided. It cannot be changed, she continued. And, he explicitly stated that he will not change it, no matter what. Han's eyes narrowed slightly. No matter what? He repeated. Does that mean that even if I, or the Hojimori group, request that he alter the plot direction for the group's benefit, extend the serialization of Hikaru no Go, he would still refuse? He would, Misaki said firmly this time, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Shirogane made it very clear. No matter what I think, the ending direction of Hikaru no Go is fixed. Even if this storyline causes massive controversy after serialization, leading to a drop in popularity or even cancellation, he will not change it. Han fell silent. A dull headache began to form behind his temples. Young, stubborn, arrogant. These young genius manga artists were always like this, full of confidence, full of pride. You tried to reason with them, and they simply wouldn't listen. Of course, he hoped Hikaru no Go would run longer. Its popularity was at its peak, ending it in just a few months would be such a waste. After a long pause, Han finally spoke. Go and persuade him once more, he said slowly. If he truly won't budge, then respect his wishes. After all, Hikaru no Go's commercial value was not particularly high. If Shirogane genuinely refused to listen, forcing the issue would only cause more trouble. More importantly, Han didn't want to risk a complete falling out with Shirogane, one that might drive him to another manga group altogether. Adults weighed many interests. But what would a 17-year-old genius consider? If I'm unhappy here, I'll just go somewhere else. Even though Hikaru no Go had signed various restrictive contracts with Hojimori Group before serialization, under Japanese law those agreements couldn't contain overly oppressive clauses. At most, there were some non-compete periods and limited liquidated damages. Given Rei's income, reputation, and age, it wasn't impossible for him to bear them. Of course, if this were a battle-type pillar manga, things would be very different. Even if the creator openly fell out with the editors, the group would still use every clause, restriction, and legal lever to force the work to continue and extract all remaining commercial value. For a work like Source War Chronicle, even if Han himself agreed to let it end, upper management would never allow it. The stock price fluctuation alone would be unacceptable. Hearing this, Misaki finally let out a long breath. The worst-case scenario had been avoided. With Han's authority, he could decide to allow Hikaru no Go to end according to its original plan, without escalating the issue to higher management. Otherwise, if the group's senior executives, people who only cared about money and market value, who treated popular manga artists as endlessly exploitable assets, completely ignoring the basic logic of storytelling, intervened directly. Given Rei's temperament, a violent confrontation would be almost inevitable. Misaki had seen such things before. Her own mother had once had a bitter falling out with a former editor-in-chief of Hojimori Group, simply because she wanted to end her manga at its peak. As for persuading Rei again, Misaki had already accepted reality. That was just how Rei was. There was no point in nagging him endlessly. That evening, while Misaki was still handling matters related to Hikaru no Go, Rika delivered good news to Rei. The Go record he had requested had finally been completed, with the combined effort of two top-tier professional Go players in Japan. Rika, however, looked rather puzzled. When she had told those two players that the White Stones could still turn the game around, both of them had burst into laughter. Each of them had won world championship titles, only once, not triple or quintuple champions. But they were still unquestionably among the strongest Go players in Japan. Both of them said the same thing. The strength displayed in the game was terrifying. Even while replaying the board, they could clearly feel the overwhelming skill of both players. But even so, the White Stones had absolutely no chance of making a comeback. As for the so-called reversal move, they weren't even interested in exploring it. They were afraid that forcing a miraculous comeback would feel like a blunder, ruining their respect for the players involved. But while those two weren't interested, Rika was. So after arriving at Rei's home, Rei didn't waste any time. As agreed, he showed Rika the complete final Go record of the match, move by move. Before long, Rika's expression changed. Over the next few days, while Rei was busy dealing with various matters. On Friday, the 7th volume of the Hikaru no Go Tankban was officially released. On the day of its release, Hikaru no Go fans flooded bookstores all across Japan. Market expectations for Volume 7 sales rose sharply. Some media outlets even boldly predicted that its first week sales might exceed 3.5 million copies. At the same time, on Saturday evening at 6 p.m., the first episode of the Hikaru no Go anime officially aired on Tokyo Metropolitan Television. It immediately set a new record for the highest debut rating of any anime this season. The premiere concluded with a 4.96% viewership rating. With both the manga and TV drama already massive hits, the possibility of the anime failing had been practically non-existent from the start. And sure enough, the anime's market performance met expectations perfectly. However, for the vast majority of Hikaru no Go fans, neither the broadcast of the second season of the TV drama nor the anime's debut was their most pressing concern. What everyone truly cared about was still the latest chapter of the manga. Specifically, how the match between Toyokoyo and Sai would unfold. And how it would ultimately end. Although Hikaru no Go had already become extremely popular in Japan, those who had never read it, or had never even heard of it, still made up an overwhelming majority. After all, with such a large population, no company or institution could claim that its promotional reach covered everyone. Because of this, once the anime aired, its impact on the popularity of Hikaru no Go was immediate, and even more dramatic than that of the TV drama. Many new anime viewers, after watching just the first episode, immediately turned to the original manga. This was precisely why once a manga received an anime adaptation, it often triggered an explosive rise in manga sales. When the first volume of Hikaru no Go was initially released, its first week sales were under 1 million copies. Based on that performance, a total sales figure of 3 million copies would already have been considered excellent. But after nearly a year of serialization, coupled with the successive broadcasts of the TV drama and the anime, on January 10, the total sales of Volume 1 officially surpassed 10 million copies. Although this achievement applied to only the first volume, it sent an unmistakable signal to the entire industry. Because Hikaru no Go had been serialized for such a short time, and its rise had been so rapid, many fans and even industry insiders had lacked a concrete sense of just how popular it truly was. People said it was popular. They said it ranked near the top of Dream Comic. They said its TV drama dominated ratings. But for readers who didn't understand industry metrics, those statements felt abstract. However, once you said a single tankban volume sold over 10 million copies, everyone understood. In Japan, 8 to 9 million copies per volume already marked the boundary of a first-tier manga. Exceeding 10 million copies per volume meant a firmly established top-tier work. And now, the first volume of Hikaru no Go had already crossed that threshold within half a year of its release. At this point, both insiders and outsiders finally grasped the scale of its success. Are there really tens of millions of Go enthusiasts in Japan? The first volume sold 10 million copies, won't all the later volumes follow? The person above probably doesn't understand Go very well. Even if not many people actively follow professional Go matches, there are still tens of millions who understand the rules and have basic familiarity with the game. It's just that maybe fewer than 1 in 10 actually watch matches regularly or play a game every year. That many people. I always thought Go wasn't very popular. It's like shogi or chess. There are huge numbers of people who know how to play, but how many watch professional matches every day? Most people learn it for fun and might not touch it again for years. In that situation, of course it feels like it isn't popular. Shirogane Sensei is unbelievable. Just the first volume alone broke 10 million sales. The main reason is that the pull effect of the anime and TV drama is simply too strong. If there were no anime or live-action adaptations, Hikaru no Go's tankban sales would probably be only half of what they are now. Go, go, go. Right now only the first volume has broken 10 million sales. Give it a little more time and the average per volume will hit 10 million. Isn't Hikaru no Go developing too fast? It feels kind of unreal. You'll understand once you look at Hikaru no Go's update rate. Shirogane produces more manga manuscripts in a single year than many manga artists do in 2. In any industry, if you can either do things well or do them fast, you can succeed. Shirogane's work is both high quality and insanely fast, so these results are only natural. How can a 17-year-old high school student, who's still in school, draw a manga like Hikaru no Go? It can't be ghostwritten, right? Anyone who says that is just brainless. At this point, Hikaru no Go can bring tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions, in income to its creator. What kind of ghostwriter would be stupid enough to take a tiny ghostwriting fee instead of creating their own work? Ever since teacher Shirogane became famous, idiots have started popping up. Who knows if they're just anti-fans sent by supporters of other manga artists? Just ignore them. People fear fame the way pigs fear getting fat. A 17-year-old high school student making tens of millions a year would make at least 50 or 60 out of 100 people jealous, envious, or resentful. Of course they won't feel comfortable unless they try to drag teacher Shirogane down. Do you think Hikaru no Go will really keep going like this and end up topping Dream Comic? I don't know whether it'll reach number 1 or not, but I don't think there'll be any suspense for this year's Manga of the Year award. I can already picture teacher Shirogane going up on stage in February to give a speech and accept the award again. Chapter 107, The Game Begins. Fans of the Hikaru no Go TV series, anime, and manga had all become active over the past few days. At present, on the Dream Comic official website, Hikaru no Go's topic popularity was undoubtedly the highest. Everyone in the entire Hojimori Group editorial department could now feel the pressure brought by Hikaru no Go. Even Shin, the editor of Source War Chronicle, the current number 1 ranked work in the magazine, maintained a calm and composed appearance. But in reality, his heart had long been stretched tight. After all, Source War Chronicle had held the number 1 position in Dream Comic for 39 consecutive months. There was absolutely no way Hikaru no Go could break that record here. Not even for a single issue. That was completely unacceptable. Wednesday, January 13th. Once again, it was time for the weekly release of Dream Comic. As a loyal fan of Hikaru no Go, someone who had attended many of Shirogana's signing events to show her support, Mizuno woke up at 7 in the morning and immediately began posting in the anime fan group she had joined. "Wake up, everyone! Let's go! Time to buy Dream Comic! So jealous! I still have to work. No chance to buy it right away. Please, those of you who read Hikaru no Go first, don't spoil anything. You can talk about it after I get off work at noon, okay? Will this week's plot finally start the match between Sai and Toya? Not sure. Maybe Shirogane-sensei will drag it out a bit more. This crappy job. I really don't want to work another day. Is there a rich woman who can suddenly appear in front of me? I don't want to struggle anymore. Stop thinking about shortcuts while you're young. If your stomach hurts, go see a doctor." Scrolling through the joking comments from the group, Mizuno's mood improved slightly. The only problem was that January in Tokyo was freezing, and walking outside felt unbearable. After eating breakfast at a small diner, she timed her steps carefully and arrived at a nearby bookstore. She headed straight for the familiar manga section. As she got closer, she noticed that the promotional poster displayed there had changed. It was a scene from Hikaru no Go. Sai and Toya sat opposite each other at a Go board, stones in hand, locked in play. Mizuno's gaze shifted to the neatly stacked piles of Dream Comic beside the display. The thick cover of the magazine once again gave Hikaru no Go the highest level of prominence. This week, it was Hikaru and Akira who dominated the entire cover. Since Hikaru no Go began serialization, this was already the 4th time it had claimed the cover. And with its current growth momentum, no one doubted whether Hikaru no Go deserved such treatment from the Hojimori group. Mizuno picked up a copy, paid at the counter, and stepped outside. Without the warmth of the store's air conditioning, a cold gust of wind hit her, making her shiver. She quickly took a photo of the magazine cover with her phone and uploaded it to the fan group, instantly stirring excitement. Satisfied, she returned home. Sitting at her desk with the heater running, Mizuno finally used her still stiff fingers to tear open the plastic wrapping. She took a deep breath and began flipping through the pages. To keep costs low and make it affordable for elementary school students, the paper quality used for weekly manga magazines in Japan was not great. It didn't smell bad, but the print clarity and texture were far inferior to tankban volumes. Normally, Mizuno would complain internally about this. Today, she didn't care at all. She skipped straight past Source War Chronicle and The Wanderer, flipping directly to the Hikaru no Go pages. The story began to build. Because of illness and hospitalization, Toya Koyo could only play online Go using his computer. On the Go website, Toya Koyo did not use a pseudonym. He registered directly under his real name and began playing. With an overwhelmingly high win rate, he climbed the rankings at astonishing speed. It wasn't until he defeated a well-known professional Go player on the platform that Go enthusiasts across the entire website, both domestic and international, finally realized something. This person was not someone pretending to be Toya Koyo. He was Toya Koyo himself. That 5-time champion, the world's #1 Go player. The news that Toya Koyo had started playing online Go spread rapidly among Go enthusiasts. Soon, a group of online Go fans began debating who was stronger, Toya Koyo, or Sai, who had appeared 2 years ago. Mizuno flipped through the pages one by one. Although she was anxious and desperate to see the match between Toya Koyo and Sai, she also understood something very clearly. For a story to truly be good, foreshadowing was absolutely indispensable. This chapter of the manga deliberately avoided focusing on the protagonist, Hikaru, instead centering on other characters. During Toya Koyo's hospitalization, he still had to defend his title. His challenger was his disciple, C.G. Ogata. Their 5-game title match reached a tense deadlock, with both sides tied at 2 wins apiece. And although the game with Sai was just an online Go match, Toya Koyo began to prepare for it with complete seriousness. After all, for him, while title matches were important, losing was not unacceptable. Top Go players inevitably experience fluctuations in form. Being called the world's #1 referred to the upper limit and stability of one's skill, not an absolute guarantee of victory in every match. Soon, the manga depicted the weekend morning that Hikaru and Toya Koyo had agreed upon. Mizuno's heart immediately tightened. Hikaru logged into the account named Sai, which he had not used in 2 years. When he searched for the name Toya Koyo, he discovered that the other party had already logged in and was waiting. Mizuno's heart began to pound. For Sai, this might be the only chance in his existence to play Go against Toyokoyo. For Toyokoyo, this was a match in which he had placed his professional career as a wager. Meanwhile, on the Go platform, once it was confirmed that the account named Toyokoyo truly belonged to the 5-time champion, an enormous number of users began following it daily. When Toyokoyo created a new game room and invited Sai inside, Go fans across the internet erupted. The perspective then shifted to Hikaru. Sitting in an internet cafe, he followed Toyokoyo's prior instructions. Using the platform system, they determined who would take the first move. Toyokoyo took white. Hikaru took black. A suffocating tension radiated from the manga pages. Mizuno turned the page. A scene appeared in which Toyokoyo and Sai seemed to be truly seated at the Go board, facing each other like warriors with weapons drawn. She turned the page again. And then, it jumped to the manuscript of an entirely different manga. That's it. It cuts off again at this moment. Mizuno's anger surged. Another cliffhanger? It had been a whole year already, Teacher Shirogane. Could you please act like a human being? She immediately opened the official Hojimori Group website. Just as she expected, Hikaru no Go fans across Japan had finally exploded, turning into furious keyboard warriors and mercilessly attacking Shirogane. This chapter is way too padded. Teacher Shirogane, hurry up and draw. Teacher Shirogane, how does it feel to go to school? I'm suffering right now. Please send me the next Hikaru no Go manuscript. Why would you end it here? Do you have some kind of twisted sense of humor? I can't take this anymore. This cliffhanger is pure torture. So who wins in the end? I really don't understand. Nothing anyone says matters. Only what Teacher Shirogane says counts. How many weeks is this Toyokoyo vs. Sai match going to last? If it's like this every week, I'll vomit blood. Still, I blindly support Teacher Shirogane. He's already working hard enough. Don't be too harsh. This plot arc between Sai and Toyokoyo was extremely substantial, mobilizing fan enthusiasm to an unprecedented level. Many casual readers complained loudly after finishing the chapter, but their dissatisfaction was aimed only at Rei, not at Hikaru no Go as a work. With its restrained and subtle storytelling, this chapter made one thing clear to fans across Japan. Starting next week, the most classic match of the entire manga was about to begin. Toyokoyo vs. Sai. And this game would be watched by major Go players around the world. The foreshadowing for this arc had finally come to an end. The next day, the new rankings were released. Just like the previous week, Hikaru no Go remained in second place. Misaki stared at the data displayed on her computer. Although Hikaru no Go was still ranked second, the gap separating it from Source War Chronicle in first place was steadily shrinking. Everyone in the Hojimori Group editorial department understood this clearly. Hikaru no Go's momentum was unstoppable. This manga was openly challenging Source War Chronicle's long-held throne. The key question now was simple. Could the Sai vs. Toyokoyo storyline truly meet the fans' expectations? Could this game really be so brilliant that readers would believe it was a spark that only a 1000-year Go spirit and the world's strongest Go player could ignite? A game that only they could possibly play? Chapter 108, Decision and the Game. By mid-January, Rei also received a nomination invitation for the Japan Annual Best Comic Award. Of course, the arrival of this nomination did not exceed Rei's expectations. In fact, if anyone in all of Japan who paid even a little attention to comics were asked to choose the best comic of the year in their hearts, 9 out of 10 would choose Hikaru no Go. After all, both its achievements and its reputation were undeniable. Among all the comic works born this year, Hikaru no Go completely dominated its contemporaries in every aspect. Every professional in the Japanese comic industry, including Rei himself, understood this clearly. The nomination was merely a formality. Even if he popped champagne at halftime, no one could say anything. For fans of Hikaru no Go, however, their recent focus was not on awards, but on the plot itself. It could be said that these past few weeks were the most agonizing period for fans since the serialization of Hikaru no Go began. Although the comic's pacing was entirely normal, fans who were desperately waiting to see the outcome of the match between Sai and Toyokoyo could no longer endure it. For several consecutive days, they flooded Rei's creator account with comments, demanding that he stop dragging things out and update more chapters next week. At school, Rei had completely become a celebrity. Every day after class, large numbers of students from other grades and classes gathered outside his classroom, craning their necks just to catch a glimpse of him. As for things like underclassmen confessing to Rei, just like in manga clichés, it happened on average once every half a month. Of course, most people paid attention to Rei for only one reason. They wanted to know what would happen next in Hikaru no Go. The Japanese comic industry had deep roots, and young people were the main audience for manga. Even within schools, there were enormous numbers of fervent Hikaru no Go fans. They waited for Rei every day with no ulterior motive. It was simply the pure enthusiasm of fans toward the creator of Hikaru no Go. As for students who didn't read manga, they often watched TV dramas or anime instead. Coincidentally, the most popular anime of the current season and the most popular TV drama of the past 2 seasons were both Hikaru no Go. In today's schools, students who had not been influenced by Hikaru no Go were actually in the minority. Even some older teachers, who still held traditional views and scoffed at comics, watched the TV drama adaptation of Hikaru no Go with great interest. They proudly told others that Shirogane, the creator of the series, was a student at their school. Outside the school, things were even more exaggerated. Most fans would not go so far as to block the school gates, but Japan's population was large. Even a very small percentage of overly enthusiastic fans amounted to an enormous number. As a result, every day at dismissal time, nearby police officers came to the school gates to maintain order and ensure Rei would not be surrounded or harmed. Rei could only apologize repeatedly to the officers. There was no real solution. He couldn't exactly transfer schools with the university entrance exams approaching. All he could do was grit his teeth and continue commuting every day. However, while Rei was being overwhelmed by fan enthusiasm as Hikaru no Go approached a critical point in its plot, something else was happening behind the scenes. At the Japan Go Association, the famous match from Rei's previous life, the game between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, which Rei intended to adapt into Hikaru no Go, was brought by Rika to her master's school for research, with Rei's permission. Although Rika's own skill level was only average among professional Go players, female professionals were relatively rare, and women were still at a disadvantage in Go. More importantly, Rika's teacher was a towering figure in the Japanese Go world of the previous generation. Many of the Go records she had previously collaborated on for Hikaru no Go were completed with the assistance of highly skilled senior and junior disciples, as well as her master, because her own strength alone was insufficient. But this time was different. When Rika brought this Go record back, the expressions of everyone studying it changed dramatically. The playing style and techniques from Rei's previous life did show slight differences compared to modern Japanese Go, but overall, they were not outrageous. Rika herself did not feel anything too shocking. She only thought the game was interesting and impressive. But among her fellow disciples and teachers, several were professional 9-dan players. Just by looking at the board, they broke out in a cold sweat. The level of the player controlling the white stones was already terrifying, clearly possessing world-class skill. And yet, despite this, white was suppressed by black throughout the game, completely unable to find a solution, falling into a massive disadvantage during the middle game. In fact, any professional Go player with sufficient strength could tell that once the game entered the middle phase, white had virtually no chance left. Brilliant! At one point, Rika's teacher finally understood the intention behind the empty triangle move, and Zenji's eyes lit up. At over 50 years old, he had essentially semi-retired from the Go world. Go is an extremely demanding game that places immense pressure on calculation ability. Even if experience accumulates with age, how could the reaction speed of a 50-year-old brain compare to that of younger players? Go matches have time limits. In the same amount of time, you might think 30 moves ahead, while a younger opponent could think 60 or 70. However, in a non-match setting like this, with ample time to study the record, an old veteran like Zenji could see far more than those younger 9-dan players. The more he looked, the more excited he became. In his eyes, the strength of the black stones was a despair as deep as night itself, yet this move by the white stones was like a blade of light tearing through the darkness. He had played Go his entire life and had never made such a move. Who exactly are these two players? Zenji asked, turning to his disciple. The player using white, even if I faced him in my prime, I would probably lose. And yet he was suppressed throughout the game by the one playing black. If not for this move, this game, this. Zenji's voice trembled with excitement. I don't know, Rika replied. Teacher Shirogane, whom I work with, said the game was played by his friend and another person. Neither of them wishes to reveal their identities, so he absolutely won't disclose any information. Rika looked somewhat bewildered. Zenji's expression dimmed slightly upon hearing this. Then he spoke again. What a pity. But Rika, why did you bring this game to our club? It's just that teacher Shirogane said his Go skill is limited, and you, teacher, also know my skill level. If he's going to serialize this game in the manga, he's afraid that the manga audience won't understand it. So he plans to invite you, a top Go player, to help record a video explaining this game, to help Hikaru no Go manga fans understand this move, and why it can be called the Hand of God in the manga. Of course, he will cover the costs. The Hand of God. Zenji was about to retort that such a thing didn't exist, but he couldn't bring himself to. Because if he himself didn't possess that level of skill, how could he refute it? Especially since that particular move was now appearing more and more vividly in his mind. I understand. You can leave this matter to me, Zenji said softly to the disciples beside Rika. Rika's expression froze. Is Master really that agreeable? Rika, continue to cooperate well with that kid named Shirogane, Zenji said. Although I'm reluctant to admit it, the benefits that Hikaru no Go has brought to the Japan's Go world are something that 5 World Championship trophies can't compare to. Just for the contribution he has made to the Go industry, I will grant that kid's request. And tell him not to mention money, I will only participate in Hikaru no Go by helping out for free. Rika's expression became solemn upon hearing this. I understand. And Zenji coughed. Tell that kid named Shirogane that I hope there will be more of Sai in the later plot. The TV series seems to be all about that kid named Hikaru playing Go, which is boring. Rika's expression became extremely strange. You, a top Go player in the country, are also following the Hikaru no Go TV series every week. Doesn't that mean the Go records I helped design for Hikaru no Go are being seen by my teacher every week? This is a bit embarrassing. He won't discover how bad I am, will he? A few days passed, and time came to Wednesday again. Starting from 6 a.m., a large number of Hikaru no Go fans, without sleeping, began actively participating in official website forums and discussion boards. Just waiting for the bookstore to open at 8:30. I hope teacher Shirogane, you don't lose your mind and let Toyokoyo win. If you do, I'll definitely rush to your school and scold you. Actually, I don't want Toyokoyo to lose either. This character is quite charming. Can't Go end in a draw. The reason why Black gives Komi as 7.5 points instead of an integer is precisely to prevent a draw. It's not that a draw can't happen. In special circumstances, Go can actually end in a draw. For example, if a triple KO occurs and the game can't be finished, it's ruled a draw. But there's no way teacher Shirogane would design the game like that, right? I completely can't guess the direction of this manga's story now. Do you guys think Sai can really find the Hand of God in this game? He should be able to, right? If he can't find it in a game against Toyokoyo, then Sai might never find it. But if he does find it, where will this manga go? If he finds it, then he finds it. Sai fulfills his wish and continues happily playing Go with Hikaru. That makes sense. Then I hope Sai can find the Hand of God he wants in this game. Teacher Shirogane, I'm cheering for you. Even though it's useless to say this now, I hope that the chapter you drew weeks ago won't disappoint me today. Comment. 10 comment. Vote. Chapter 109, The Millennium's Answer. Early in the morning, Uehara Yukito let out a long breath, his fingers clattering on the keyboard. He checked the time, it was 8 in the morning. After tidying up and washing, Yukito left his house. The cold streets were filled with people busy going to work or school. People like him, who had resigned and were lying flat at home with nothing to do, were rarely seen. Arriving at the bookstore, Yukito was surprised to find it already bustling with people, unlike what he had imagined. Everyone's objective was clear, they all headed straight for the manga section. This week's Dream comic cover no longer gave special treatment to Hikaru no Go, but on the cover, Hikaru no Go's protagonist, Hikaru, and Source War Chronicles protagonist stood opposite each other, a sense of impending conflict rising in his heart. If I remember correctly, the fan vote difference between Hikaru no Go and Source War Chronicle last week was less than 100,000, wasn't it? Yukito pondered. The Hojimori group knows what it's doing. At a time like this, encouraging two works to compete for first place and guiding fans to argue with each other, it really heats up popularity. But, after all, it's a record of being number 1 on Dream Comic for over 30 consecutive months. Even if it's Hikaru no Go, can it really surpass it? With these thoughts in his head, Yokito took the magazine back home. He opened the manga. The plot picked up from last week, with Sai and Toyokoyo's online Go match being extremely cautious. Don't let Toyokoyo's words fool you, saying Sai didn't dare to show his true face and was no gentleman. In reality, he was incredibly serious when playing Go. After all, his entire professional career was on the line. And the biggest difference in online Go is that unless you intentionally restrict it, others can enter the room and watch from the side. News of Sai's account going online spread rapidly through mutual promotion among Go enthusiasts worldwide. Coupled with the fact that everyone had confirmed in the previous chapter that the player named Toyokoyo on the website was the Majin himself, everyone now understood. This game was a battle between Sai and the current world's number 1 Go player, Toyokoyo. In the manga, the two players' stones fell one by one. Because Rei used a Go record from his previous life, at the beginning, Toyokoyo's white stones were at a disadvantage under Sai's offensive. Of course, Yokito didn't understand Go, so he could only infer the direction of the game through the reactions of other characters. The manga's depiction shifted from an online match to a scene where the two sat at a Go board in a virtual mental space, personally placing stones. Toyokoyo's serious expression. Sai's sharp gaze. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. The early disadvantage gradually turned into a counterattack. From this point onward, the evolving Go record was the one Rei had designed with two professional 9th Dan players. By this stage of the game, among the spectators were not only Go enthusiasts from around the world, but also Hikaru's friend Waya, and Akira, the person Hikaru pursued. At home, Akira was greatly shocked to discover his father playing online Go with Sai, but then he sat in front of the computer, carefully watching the game. As the match progressed, anyone with even a minor role in the story, notified by friends, began entering the online Go room to watch. Yokito flipped through the pages one by one. "This is my Go. You must remember, I am Koyo Toya," Toyokoyo said, staring at the screen. "I won't hold back. I will definitely win. Then, I will uncover your true identity." Sai merely gazed deeply at the Go board. He was searching for the feeling of the hand of God, but it did not appear. Along the way, there were subtle mystery elements. For example, Toyokoyo's disciple, C.G. Ogata, realized from Toyokoyo's prior arrangement with the nurse to refuse visitors that this match with Sai was definitely not accidental, but carefully prepared. C.G. Ogata also sat down in front of the computer to watch. To Yokito, the stones he didn't understand continued to fall one by one. But judging from the reactions of the onlookers, Toyokoyo was incredibly strong, yet his white stones were suppressed by Sai's black stones. Perhaps both were among the world's best, but even among the best, there were still differences. Toyokoyo endured, waiting for an opportunity. Sai played steadily from advantage, not making a single mistake. "This aura. I've felt it before." Toyokoyo's eyes suddenly lit up, sensing a familiar presence. Yokito immediately understood, Toyokoyo was recalling that game against Hikaru in the new First Dan tournament. Then the game quickly entered the endgame. It has reached the small endgame. There is only one possible conclusion. I believe the opponent absolutely cannot fail to see it. I've lost. Toyokoyo's expression grew solemn as he gripped his arm. Unwilling, yet accepting. In a match at this level, waiting for the opponent to blunder was an insult to both players. Then, on the next page, a pop-up appeared on Hikaru's screen. Toyokoyo resigns. The expressions of Go masters from all over the world watching the game were shocked. Akira, C.G. Ogata, Waya, a group of foreign Go players, Japan's professional Go players. Sai and Toyokoyo's match ended with Toyokoyo's mid-game resignation. Because the Go record used in the serialized plot differed, the exact progression in the Japanese version of the Hikaru no Go manga also varied. But overall, the result was the same. Whether it was the Go record from the manga in Rei's previous life or Lee Sedol's real match, normally, if that crucial move from his previous life was not played, the game would end in a mid-game resignation. Even if Rika had invited two top-tier 9th Dan players to continue from the 78th move of that game, it would still be meaningless. White simply could not win. The only outcome was resignation. Sai won. Yokito's hands trembled with excitement. Indeed, even the world's number 1, Toyokoyo, was no match in the manga. But Sai, he was the Hikaru no Go that had been continuously learning for 1,000 years. No matter how strong Toyokoyo's talent was, no matter how much experience he possessed, could he truly be stronger than Sai? Watching from the sidelines, CG Ogata, who was preparing for the 5th game of the title match with his master in a few days, felt despair well up in his heart. In this game, all he could see was the terrifying calculation ability and control of the black stones. Even his admired master had his rhythm completely seized. Although Toyokoyo had attempted to counterattack, every attempt failed. The game ended in resignation. Is there really no way to break this game? CG Ogata's expression was pained. Sai, who exactly are you? In the manga, Akira, who was watching, also wore a bewildered expression. From this game, he saw a familiar figure, the Hikaru from the very beginning. That overwhelmingly strong Hikaru. It's him. Sai. It must be him. In the internet cafe, Sai, who had won, closed his eyes, quietly savoring the game. In truth, as Go developed, players grew stronger and stronger. But Sai had also never stopped learning. And at this very moment, he had defeated the world's current number 1, Toyokoyo. It's over, Toyokoyo, thank you. Thank you, Hikaru. Sai spoke softly to Hikaru beside him. But Hikaru remained silent, his gaze fixed on the Go board where they had played. Hikaru. Yokito's expression also turned puzzled. Hikaru, what are you looking at? Do you even understand it? You're just a first dan player. Here, Hikaru suddenly said, pointing inside the manga. In this game, if Toyokoyo hadn't played here and given up this area, but instead played here, to dig. In the manga, Hikaru pointed several times at the board, then used the platform's built-in analysis function to deduce a few additional moves. The white stones that had been almost completely surrounded in the center suddenly formed a threat against the black stones on the right. The black stone's central advantage disappeared. Originally, at this stage of the game, Toyokoyo's white stones were already at a decisive disadvantage, with no possibility of reversal. But this move, Yokito couldn't understand it. Yet he saw Sai's shocked expression in the manga. And Hikaru's radiant smile. Goosebumps erupted across his body. Then, in Sai's narration, a single line of dialogue appeared. I understand now. Heaven made me wander the world for 1,000 years, just so Hikaru could see this game. Yokito continued flipping the page, but only a single line of text appeared. The millennium's answer. And the millennium's answer. A tingling sensation ran across Yokito's scalp. What did that mean? The title, The Millennium's Answer? And Sai's words. Heaven made him wander for 1,000 years, just so Hikaru could see this game. Did this mean that Hikaru's empty dig move, the one that reversed the situation, was the hand of God? Was it that highest level of human Go? A move capable of overturning fate itself? Shirogane-sensei, what are you doing? You can't end the chapter here. Is there no morality? No conscience? Today, Yokito really couldn't hold it in anymore. He knew Hikaru no Go was famous for maddening cliffhangers. But knowing didn't mean he could get used to them. Especially now, it felt like ants were crawling beneath his skin. He desperately wanted an answer. Desperately needed an explanation. On the official website, angry fans finally exploded. Shirogane-sensei, what are you doing? Get out of school right now. Immediately. What kind of manga artist studies instead of drawing manga? Hurry up and update Hikaru no Go tonight, even if it's just 2 pages. So it wasn't Sai who found the hand of God, but Hikaru. Can anyone evaluate this game between Sai and Toyokoyo? I can. As a professional Go player and manga reader, I was stunned. I replayed the game record myself. Toyokoyo's white stones were absolutely top tier, but those black stones, were they even human? Not a single mistake. And yet, such a perfect game could still be overturned. That empty dig move by the white stones completely broke my brain. Without it, white would have been crushed to death. Toyokoyo tried to counterattack the whole time and failed, but one move reversed everything. I envy people who understand Go. I don't understand anything, I can only follow the plot. I just want to know what happens next. Will Toyokoyo really retire? Since Hikaru found the hand of God, what comes next? What will happen to Hikaru? Shirogane-sensei, please stop using divine powers. These cliffhangers are killing us every week. I'm furious. I'm going to the school gate to confront Shirogane-sensei and force him to hand over the Hikaru no Go manuscript. Everyone wait for my good news. Remember to send me an electronic copy afterward, brother. Me too. Me too. Good people live peaceful lives. Please give me a copy. Thank you, OP. Wednesday afternoon. From early morning, fervent Hikaru no Go fans who had read the latest chapter were already waiting outside the school for Rei to finish classes. But Rei was prepared. Under staff arrangements, he didn't exit through the back gate. Instead, he slipped away through a small internal path and escaped first. Online, the topic Toyokoyo loses to Sai surged to the top of hot searches across major manga websites in an extremely short time. At the same moment, the Japan Go Association's official website released a video. The content was simple. A lecture by Japan's top professional Go player Zenji, explaining the key moments of the Toyokoyo vs. Sai match in Hikaru no Go, helping readers understand the game. Instantly, a massive number of casual Hikaru no Go fans flooded the Go Association's official website. It didn't matter if they didn't understand Go. If someone was explaining it, they absolutely had to attend the lesson. Chapter 110, Showdown. Normally, a Go match depicted in a comic would not attract much attention from high-ranking professional Go players. Everyone is an adult, who would seriously nitpick a Go game in a Go manga. People read it for the plot. If a top player appears in a comic, must the match really conform perfectly to real-world top-tier Go? Because of this, many Hikaru no Go fans knew that the latest chapter featured a match between top players. But very few actually studied the winning moves seriously. That was, until Zenji, a top player of the previous generation in Japan, posted his explanation video on the Japan Go Association's official account. Most Hikaru no Go fans still couldn't understand what he was saying, even after watching the explanation. Even if something like the Hand of God truly appeared, its brilliance was not something ordinary Go enthusiasts could easily appreciate. However, for Japan's professional Go players, this match in Hikaru no Go became more thrilling the higher their own rank was. Coupled with Zenji's explanation video, very quickly, this match in Hikaru no Go attracted the attention of a large number of professional Go players, and many others began sharing their own analyses online. After wading through a day's worth of confusing information, ordinary Hikaru no Go fans finally understood several things. First, the quality of the match between Sai and Toyokoyo in Hikaru no Go was astonishingly high. Even two professional 9-dan players stated that, regardless of whether it was black or white, they could feel a terrifying level of Go strength that surpassed their own. Especially the black stones. They felt almost inhuman. And yet, it was precisely against such white stones that, from a disadvantaged position, the move pointed out by Hikaru in the manga was played. The so-called Hand of God was a move capable of reversing the entire course of the game. And the move Hikaru pointed out. Even though I don't understand it, just watching the explanation gives me goosebumps. Is this game really that incredible? Even real-world professional Go players feel inferior. But wasn't this game created by Shirogane-sensei on commission from the Go Association? Aren't these professionals just praising their own work? What are you talking about? Shirogane-sensei already explained the origin of this game on his account. It was played by two acquaintances he knew in middle school. He won't reveal their identities, but it's confirmed that they're absolutely top-tier players in the world. A game played by acquaintances? Are you joking? Are you saying amateurs can play a game that shocks professional 9-dan players? It's more than shock. My dad is a semi-retired 9-dan player. After I showed him this game, he locked himself in his room for the entire day. You could feel how shaken he was. I still don't believe it. Two acquaintances from middle school just happened to be top players? And Shirogane-sensei remembered the game for years and perfectly recreated it in the manga. What are you implying? Is it possible that the friend Shirogane-sensei mentioned, is actually himself? For example, just because Sai is a fictional character doesn't mean such a thing couldn't exist in reality. Maybe Shirogane-sensei has his own unseen Hikaru no Go behind him, helping him create this game. Stop it. It's late at night, this is getting creepy. Discuss the manga as manga. Don't bring in supernatural nonsense. Anyway, existence itself is reasonable. No matter how this game came about, one thing is clear, so many professional players have analyzed it, and no one has refuted that this move deserves to be called the Hand of God. More importantly, if you want to refute it, you need evidence. You'd have to find a game with a higher level of play and an even more brilliant move. But in reality, even 9 Dan players don't seem confident enough to do that. Is it really that exaggerated? I don't care about the Hand of God anymore. I just want to know what happens in the next chapter of Hikaru no Go. Another 7-day wait, it's torture. The heated discussion caused by this chapter surpassed any previous update in Hikaru no Go's serialization history. Comic readers, professional Go players, and even anti-fans were all engaged, implicitly or explicitly, in fierce debates over whether there were any flaws in this depicted match. But the truth was, since Rei dared to draw this plot into the manga, he was never worried about any fundamental problems. The reason was simple. Even if this game were analyzed by an AI that had been upgraded countless times before Rei's transmigration, an AI that had already exhausted the full possibility space of Go, its conclusion for this match was the same. That move was the optimal answer. If some Go players and enthusiasts in Japan wanted to find flaws, other players would naturally step forward to defend that move. As the controversy surrounding this chapter of Hikaru no Go continued to spread online, professionals in Japan's comic industry shifted their attention to another matter. For example, the popularity ranking of this chapter of Hikaru no Go. Speaking of Hikaru no Go, from the moment it began serialization until now, nearly a full year, it had risen from 15th place in its very first issue to 2nd place. A rise that could only be described as a miracle. And now, with the massive commotion caused by this chapter's update, was it possible that after one miracle, another miracle might follow? Thursday morning. Rei woke up early to prepare for school. Mayu had been awake even earlier. She sat in the living room with her sister, the two of them staring blankly at one another. After Mayu left for school, Misaki, wearing a serious expression, drove straight to Hojimori Group. The moment she entered the editorial department, the previously lively discussions there fell noticeably quiet. To put it bluntly, everyone had been discussing one thing, whether Hikaru no Go could surpass Source War Chronicle this week. But with the main person involved now present, continuing such discussions openly was clearly inappropriate. Misaki sat down at her desk and, from time to time, glanced toward Shin, the editor in charge of Source War Chronicle. Although the two exchanged not a single word, the tension in the office was unmistakable. As Misaki looked at him, Shin also looked back at her. Minute by minute, time passed. All the editors in the office were waiting for one moment. 9:30 a.m. In fact, most editors had a fairly clear understanding of the situation. Hikaru no Go was indeed incredibly popular right now. But converting popularity into votes in a magazine ranking took time. Many magazine readers simply didn't vote at all, or didn't even know how. Under these circumstances, last week there had still been a gap of more than 90,000 votes between Hikaru no Go and Source War Chronicle. Closing that gap in a single week was unlikely. Beep. At a certain moment, Misaki heard the notification sound from her email. She immediately opened it. Scrolling from top to bottom, a line of data jumped into view. Source War Chronicle, votes, 922,159. Hikaru no Go, votes, 907,812. The Wanderer, votes, 701,523. When the editors saw the vote counts for the top two works, many of them unconsciously changed expressions, and the atmosphere in the office stirred again. Both had exceeded 900,000 votes. Strictly speaking, Hikaru no Go had indeed surpassed Source War Chronicle's vote total from last week. Last week, Source War Chronicle had been at around 890,000. Due to the uproar caused by this chapter's plot, Hikaru no Go had truly closed a gap of nearly 100,000 votes in a single week. But that didn't mean Source War Chronicle would simply stand still. Its fans had also mobilized this week. Many casual comic readers had spontaneously voted for Source War Chronicle. At that moment, quiet whispers filled the editorial department. Both works passed 900,000 votes. That's insane. Are all of Source War Chronicle's dormant fans finally coming out? After all, it's been number one in the magazine for over 30 consecutive months. Its fanbase is definitely larger than Hikaru no Go's, but the fan loyalty. Fans of both sides are giving it everything. What a shame. Hikaru no Go was just a little short. Still, Hikaru no Go has already set the highest popularity vote record on Dream Comic in the past 3 years. Unfortunately, those past 3 years don't include today. And Source War Chronicle also just set a new all-time vote record since it began serialization. What a pity. Hikaru no go. Misaki watched the subtle shift in attitude among her colleagues. She looked at the report in her hands, but surprisingly, she didn't feel much emotion at all. Source War Chronicle had managed to defend its throne this week. But, what about next week?
Thanks for listening.